The skeleton speaks into a room that was quiet before quiet was invented. No air, no dust, just the low, steady hum of cosmic machinery at the center of time, like a refrigerator someone left running at the beginning of the universe and never remembered to unplug. The Lich stands there, all angles and absence, and when he opens his mouth, time itself flinches. I wish for the extinction of all life. 5 words. A simple grammatical sentence. A guillotine dropped across reality. Prismo lounges on his couch, glowing a soft, warm orange against the void, like a nightlight that accidentally became a god. He is two-dimensional, but his presence feels deep, like you could fall into him and keep falling forever. Around him, infinite screens flicker with infinite timelines. Farm world snowstorms, candy people laughing, Shermie and Beth wandering a distant, overgrown Ooo. And here is the thing. In this room, with this wish, all of that is on the table. The wish hits the time room like a knife through film stock. It doesn't just change reality. It slices it, curls it, splices it into new reels. Somewhere, in one timeline, the universe empties out like a drained bathtub. Somewhere else, a boy with a grass arm and a dog made of stretchy magic watch a different Earth freeze over into farm world. The Lich is speaking once, but his desire echoes down every corridor of the multiverse. Think about that for a second. One sentence, spoken in a cozy cosmic bachelor pad with a jar of pickles on the table, becomes one of the most dangerous moments in Oo's history. Not just Finn and Jake's Ooh, but all the versions of Ooh that could have been, that still might be, that only exist because Prismo's rules have to bend around this extinction-level request. Prismo doesn't roar or crackle with power. He sighs. He negotiates with the universe the way an overworked clerk negotiates with a broken copier. Gently, carefully, with the knowledge that if it really breaks, everything stops. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than time itself, watching as this wish sends fractures out through every timeline he can see. Now let's start to float back. Imagine you rise up out of the time room, out past the screens, until Prismo and the Lich are just a small glowing argument in the dark. Below you, the Land of Ooo unfolds as a single luminous thread of existence, stretching from prehistoric elementals and ancient crowns, through the Mushroom War's radioactive twilight, into candy kingdoms and fire palaces and quiet ruined futures. From up here, every choice looks gentle. Even the end of all life is just a bright knot on the line. In this video, we're going to trace that glowing thread calmly and chronologically, from the first strange beings who shaped Ooo to the last soft echoes of Finn and Jake's era, all from Prismo's timeless vantage point. We'll move slowly, like a bedtime story told by the universe to itself, through every age that this one wish manages to touch. And when we're done, the chaos of Ooo will feel simple, just moments, unfolding in that specifically Adventure Time way. Why Oo's whole life story matters when you're trying to sleep. So here is the thing. When you trace Oo's entire existence from beginning to end, it stops feeling like random chaos and starts feeling like a single long inhale and exhale. A whole universe breathing. You can close your eyes, let the timeline wash over you, and suddenly the end of the world is just another bedtime story. In this video, we're going to walk through that story. We're going to drift from the first ancient elementals shaping pre-war Earth, through the Mushroom War igniting like a terrible silent firework, all the way to Finn and Jake's era and the distant futures of Shermie and Beth. Prehistoric, Ooo, the war, the rise of the candy, fire, ice, and slime kingdoms, the Nitosphere's shadow, farm world's sideways reality, the far future ruins. It all fits into one continuous line if you look at it from the right angle. Think about that for a second. Why does that matter when you're trying to fall asleep? Because Oo's timeline is a story about survival and transformation baked directly into the landscape. The Earth breaks. Magic leaks in. Mutations bloom where cities used to stand. Kingdoms rise out of nothing and crumble back into dust. And somehow, in that specifically Adventure Time way, people still make sandwiches, tell jokes, fall in love, and argue about completely trivial nonsense while standing on the bones of lost civilizations. There is comfort in that. The idea that even when reality collapses, existence keeps improvising. Simon and Marceline huddling in ruined parking garages after the Mushroom War. Princess Bubblegum literally building the Candy Kingdom out of candy people she creates from a lab, becoming both their ruler and their terrified, overprotective parent. Finn growing up as the last known human in a broken world that still manages to throw him birthday parties and sentient sandwiches. These are not just lore points. They are emotional landmarks on the timeline. Loneliness, heartbreak, and then, somehow, hope. And at the center of time, watching all of this, is Prismo. Not just a wish granter, but a lonely observer with a wall of screens showing every version of Ooo, every branching timeline, every quiet disaster narrowly avoided or lovingly embraced. He lives in a cozy cosmic bachelor pad prison, watching the multiverse like late-night TV reruns of existence. That makes him the perfect guide for this journey. He can see prehistoric crowns in Evergreen, the Mushroom War's flash of power, Finn and Jake's small heroics, and the soft, strange futures, all at once. Let's start by making a promise about pacing. We will move slowly, but steadily, like turning the pages of a cosmic storybook, where every illustration is another century. We'll pause in the ruins with Simon and Marceline. We'll linger while Bubblegum mixes the first candy citizen in a lab beaker. We'll float with Prismo above the entire timeline and let him point, gently, at the moments that matter. If you drift off halfway through, that's fine. You won't miss a twist or a rule you needed to memorize. Time in Ooo will just keep flowing without you, looping in the background like a calm, cosmic screensaver, ready for you to rejoin the timeline wherever you wake up next. And from there, we can finally press play on the very beginning. A soft roadmap through time, from elementals to far futures. So let's start pressing play, but very, very slowly. Close your eyes for a second and imagine the timeline of Ooo, laid out like a long, glowing ribbon, stretching from ancient cosmic prehistory all the way to Shermie and Beth poking around the ruins. In this video, we're going to drift along that ribbon. In order, no frantic jumping, just a calm glide from one era to the next, while Prismo lounges at the center of time, watching with you. First, we'll pass through the oldest layer, the age of elementals and primordial magic. Before there is Ooo as you know it, there are beings like Evergreen and the original ice elemental, shaping reality with frightening ease. Here is the thing. Even this far back, the ice crown is already being forged as a desperate wish in frozen form, a concentrated desire to stop a cosmic comet at any cost. Think about that for a second. One artifact, born in terror, quietly starts steering the entire future. From there, we'll ease into pre-Mushroom War Earth, when the universe still mostly obeys boring human rules. Simon Petrikov is just an eccentric researcher buying a strange crown. Betty is still Betty, and the apocalypse is only a possibility. We're going to watch that slow slide into the Mushroom War itself. The missiles, the mushroom clouds, the nuclear light that burns the old world down and cracks reality open so magic can seep in. While cities fall, Simon and little Marcy wander through the ruins, sharing soup and songs while his mind unravels around the wish embedded in his head. Then the smoke clears. Time stretches. We move across centuries of post-war ruins as the Land of Ooo grows out of the wreckage. Princess Bubblegum starts literally building the Candy Kingdom, assembling citizens from sugar and science in that specifically Adventure Time way where being a god and being a girl in a lab coat are the same job. The other elements rebalance. Fire, slime, ice, candy, all carving out kingdoms, all arguing about what existence should feel like. Inside that growing order, the Lich keeps trying to puncture the timeline, slipping into dungeons and wells, searching for any angle to rewrite reality. Prismo's time room becomes important here. Every time a wish hits, Finn's wish for the Lich to never exist, the Lich's own wish for extinction, Farmworld blooming off to the side like a radioactive dandelion. We'll pop back to that cozy cosmic bachelor pad and watch the multiverse branch on his screens. We'll drift through Finn and Jake's age as the present, but it won't just be adventures, it will be small wishes that bend everything. A sandwich wish, a wish to fix an arm, a wish to see a lost friend again. Not evil, not even grand, just human-scale desire nudging a cosmic timeline. And finally, we'll keep going past them, into far futures, The quiet, overgrown ooh of Shermie and Beth, hints of universes beyond, echoes of old wishes still humming in the background. As you relax, you can mentally choose where you want to linger most: ancient elementals, ruined Earth, classic Ooo, or distant epilogue, and trust that we'll pass through all of them in order while Prismo keeps the projector running. The timeline is long. The wishes are many. All you have to do is float along. Get cozy in the time room, a sleepy CTA wrapped in cosmic carpeting, and as you float along, you can actually let your body catch up to what your mind is doing. If you haven't already, this is the moment to adjust. Nudge the pillow under your head until it feels like the backrest of Prismo's couch at the center of time. Let the blanket fall over you like one of his weird cosmic throws, patterned with 1,000 tiny timelines you don't have to keep track of. Dim the lights if you can, or just close your eyes and let whatever glow is in the room become background radiation, like the soft hum of the multiverse outside the time room windows. If you're sitting, maybe lean back a little more. If you're lying down, let your shoulders drop like you're sinking into Prismo's beanbag, watching all of existence play out on infinite screens as late-night TV reruns. Here is the thing. You do not have to stay awake for every episode. The universe will keep going. The timeline will keep unfolding. Prismo half-watches his own multiverse all the time, drifting in and out of attention, letting realities rise and fall while he reaches for another pickle. You can be like that. If you miss a detail about some ancient elemental or one specific wish, that's fine. Time does not get offended. While you're here, while you're relaxed in this imaginary time room, you can quietly help us keep the projector running. If you feel like it, you can tap like or subscribe, or even queue up another long lore explainer for later, so future you has a little playlist of bedtime stories about Ooo and other strange corners of reality waiting at the edge of sleep. No urgency, no cosmic countdown, just an open invitation to help us keep exploring these weird, beloved worlds in that specifically Adventure Time way. Think about that for a second. A tiny row of thumbnails on your screen, each one a doorway to another universe, lined up like channels on Prismo's wall of TVs. Tonight, it's Ooo. Another night, it might be some other broken Earth, some other set of wishes and consequences. We're going to keep walking through them slowly, as long as you want to wander. And if you're already drifting, that's perfect. In this video, you don't need to cling to every name, every date, every rule. The story of Ooo is big enough to hold you whether you're fully here or halfway gone. You can fall asleep in the middle of the Mushroom War and wake up with Shermie and Beth, and the timeline will still make its quiet kind of sense. So, let's start at the real beginning. Not the Candy Kingdom, not Finn and Jake. Before Ooo was Ooo at all. Zoom the camera of your mind back, out past the time room, past the glowing screens, past the cozy couch, until Earth is just a blue sphere hanging in the dark, waiting for its first fracture in time. Before Ooo, ancient elementals and a quiet, normal Earth, so we're hanging there, above that blue sphere, and at first it looks normal. Oceans breathing in and out, continents outlined in city lights, planes crossing the night, like tiny shooting stars that paid for their tickets. If you glanced quickly, you'd say this is just your Earth, your timeline, your familiar little corner of the universe, following predictable rules. But here is the thing. Adventure Time loves hidden layers. Under the sidewalks and shopping malls, under the office break rooms and midnight traffic, there are older patterns moving, not conspiracy theory secret, not shadow governments. Older than that. Geological. Mythological. Under the crust, under the ice caps, under the ocean trenches, there are beings and forces that have been here since before anyone named the days of the week. Most people never meet them. Most people never even suspect they exist. And yet, they are quietly editing reality in the background. Let's start with the elementals. Candy, ice, fire, and slime. They sound like something from a children's card game, but in that specifically Adventure Time way, they're also deep metaphysical architecture. They are less people and more roles. Offices in the cosmic bureaucracy of existence, every age, every era, those roles reincarnate into new faces, new bodies. But the job description stays the same. Hold your corner of reality together. The episode Evergreen is our one real flash of the primordial version of this. Eons before Ooo, before the Mushroom War, before anyone would recognize Earth's continents, there is Urgence Evergreen, the ancient ice elemental, building the first ice crown as a desperate, almost reckless wish for power against a cosmic comet. Think about that for a second. The crown that will one day ruin Simon's life and reshape the timeline is already old, already layered with fear and desire, long before humanity invents microwaves or cartoon mascots. These elementals don't just shoot fireballs or make candy people. They are climate and ecosystem and mood. Candy softens the world, nudging reality toward comfort, sweetness, and community. Fire dries and hardens it, pushing toward heat, aggression, survival. Slime dissolves boundaries, turns everything into a shared, wobbly medium. Ice slows time, preserves, remembers. When an elemental is strong in an era, entire continents feel it. Kingdoms grow personalities that mirror them. The rules of what can and cannot happen bend around their presence, and that balance is fragile. When ice overreaches, the world freezes not just in temperature, but in emotion and memory. When fire dominates, war and weaponry escalate with terrifying efficiency. When candy overwhelms, you get a universe that is safe, yes, but also strangely infantilized, insulated from the harsher edges of existence. When slime takes over, identity itself melts. None of these outcomes are evil. They are just what happens when one law of nature forgets the others exist. We're going to see that imbalance echo through the Mushroom War and beyond. But even here, on this almost normal Earth, it's already building. Somewhere in a museum, under fluorescent lights and human boredom, an artifact of that ancient ice elemental power is waiting in a glass case. A crown, unassuming, patient, and a human named Simon Petrikov is about to walk past it, reach out and make contact with a wish that was forged at the center of time, long before he was born. The crown wakes up, evergreen, Simon, and the seed of ice madness. Simon's hand hovers over the glass, and for a second, the museum goes quiet in your head. The war outside, the sirens, the slow collapse of normal reality, it all blurs. There is just him, and the crown, and a line of time that stretches backward into an age so ancient it barely has a name. Let's start there. Long before the Mushroom War, before Ooo, before candy people and vampires and cosmic wishmasters at the center of time, there was an ice elemental named Urgence Evergreen. Not a goofy wizard, not a lonely monarch, a force. Evergreen feels a comet coming, a world-ending mass of pure destructive desire, and he decides to stop it, the way ancient beings always try to stop problems in Adventure Time, with an artifact, a focus, a shortcut to power. He commissions a crown, jewels set like frozen stars, metal shaped to channel elemental power, and here is the thing, a personality woven into it. His assistant, Gunther, is terrified and worshipful, and Evergreen imprints that fear and devotion right into the crown's magical operating system. Simple declarative, it will obey. Vivid metaphor, it will obey like ice obeys winter, endlessly, even when winter should have ended. The plan fails. The comet still comes. Civilizations crack and fall. But the crown does not. It survives the impact, the floods, the extinctions. It rides out eons like a shard of frozen intent, passing through hands and ruins and forgotten kingdoms. Every time someone puts it on, the same pattern repeats. Power, then distortion, then a mind slowly rewritten into a new Evergreen, a new Gunther, a new echo of that first, scared wish to control the universe. Think about that for a second. Magic in Ooo isn't just energy, it's memory with rules. The crown is a repeating curse, a portable timeline that drags its origin with it. It outlives empires, it outlives species, it waits, and eventually, under fluorescent lights in some half-evacuated museum, it meets Simon Petrikov. Simon is not a chosen hero. He is a human archaeologist with bad timing and good intentions, cataloging relics while the Mushroom War quietly ends the age of ordinary Earth. He picks up the crown because that is what you do with artifacts. You study them, you write papers, you maybe win a grant. He has no idea he's handling the fossilized fear of an ancient ice elemental. The early changes are small. Headaches, Strange visions of glaciers and comets, of a voice calling Gunther through the corridors of his own mind. He makes bad jokes at the wrong moments, his personality slipping sideways as if some unseen director is rewriting his character arc. He starts speaking in strange cadences, losing words, then days. This is not random madness. This is the Crown booting up, reasserting its original program across a new nervous system. We're going to see this escalate, but already the timeline is bending. Simon's fate, the birth of the Ice King, the eventual Ice Kingdom looming over post-war Ooo, all of it grows out of this one contact point between pre-war science and primordial magic. The Crown becomes a bridge between ages, carrying Evergreen's failure, Simon's love, and centuries of frozen memory across the multiverse of possible futures. And as we move forward, through the fall of Earth into the rise of Ooo, that single patient artifact will keep showing up, like a cold signature written across time itself. The Mushroom War, when normal Earth quietly stops being normal, so the Crown is waiting, frozen, patient, humming with a promise it never really asked to make. And while it waits, the world that built it quietly decides to end. Here is the thing about the Mushroom War. In the show, you almost never see it. You see its echo, its shadows, its punchline. The actual war lives mostly off-screen, like a nightmare you only remember in fragments when you wake up. Somewhere, generals argue over targets, over power, over the rules of mutually assured destruction. Somewhere else, in 100 different timelines, someone presses a button. Let's start on the horizon. You're standing in an ordinary suburb, the kind with minivans and sprinklers, and those plastic flamingos that look like they've given up on existence. Far away, where the sky meets the curve of the earth, a single mushroom cloud blooms. It's slow at this distance, strangely graceful, like a cosmic flower opening in reverse. Then another, not all at once, over days, over weeks. The war is less a single explosion and more a season of detonations, a storm front made of light. Cities don't just vanish, they melt. Glass spreads across highways where children used to ride their bikes. Skyscrapers bend, buckle, and then fuse into glassy monoliths that will, in time, become dungeons. Think about that for a second. The future layers of liches and wizards are, originally, office parks and food courts cooked until the floor plan forgets what it was. The sky changes color and never quite remembers how to change back. Fallout drifts like dirty snow. Radiation seeps into soil, lungs, oceans, and then into the deeper fabric of reality itself. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the damage doesn't just kill. It mutates. It invites. It opens seams. Magic, which has always been there in the background of this universe, begins to leak through the cracks like groundwater in a ruined basement. We're going to watch suburbs distort into future kingdoms. A cul-de-sac becomes the seed of a candy kingdom, its grocery aisles one day echoed in candy streets. A frozen research station waits to be claimed by the Ice Crown's awakening. Hidden bunkers, built for terrified humans, will later read as ancient temples. Demons, elementals, and whatever else was already lurking at the edges of the multiverse slip into the vacuum left by governments and malls. Some humans survive, because humans always do. They go underground, into shelters and vaults and improvised caves. They make rules about food and water and who gets to go outside. They tell stories about the time before the mushrooms, and those stories will calcify into myths that princesses and vampires argue about centuries later. The Ice Crown activates in this pressure. Simon puts it on again and again, using its power to protect, to shield, to wish for safety in a world that no longer has any. Each use blurs his mind while sharpening his magic. He becomes a walking paradox, a man losing himself to save someone else. And above all this violence, there is an eerie quiet. After the last sirens fade, the world holds its breath. Streets fill with dust instead of traffic. Playgrounds sit with swings moving only when the wind remembers them. Abandoned toys lie in yards, like artifacts waiting for archaeologists who will never come. In that silence, two small figures start walking. A tired man with a crown he cannot stop wearing, and a small child named Marceline, clutching a teddy bear. No armies, no speeches. Just footsteps in the rubble, carrying a different kind of future across the bones of the old world. Simon and Marcy, a tiny family in a dead world. Let's start in the quiet after the sirens, where the apocalypse has already happened, and the world is no longer ending, just echoing. The city around them is a skeleton of itself. Glassless windows, like empty eye sockets, rebar ribs poking through concrete, streetlights leaning at impossible angles as if gravity got bored and rewrote the rules halfway through. Far away, something huge and wrong moves between buildings, a silhouette with too many limbs, humming at a frequency your teeth would feel before your ears. In the middle of that, there's Marceline, small enough that her boots barely peek past Simon's ribs as she rides on his back. She hums a tune that doesn't exist yet in any playlist in the universe, clutching Hambo while Simon picks through abandoned shelves with the precision of a museum curator and the desperation of a man who knows there might not be another can of beans for miles. This is not the Candy Kingdom. This is not the magical Land of Ooo yet. This is just Earth, post-Mushroom War, trying to remember how to exist. Here is the thing. Simon is already wearing the crown. It glows faintly against the grey, a tiny piece of cosmic color in all that dust. When a mutated creature lurches out of an alley, all teeth and too many eyes, Simon doesn't hesitate. The air snaps cold. Ice spears out of nowhere, pinning the monster in a glittering cage. Power absolute and immediate. Protection bought wholesale. And then, right after, the cost. His voice shifts, his words slur into nonsense. His eyes go distant as if he's buffering in the middle of his own life. He comes back. He always comes back, at least for now. But every wish the crown silently grants for him, to be strong, to be fast, to be enough to keep this one child alive, chips away at Simon Petrikov and replaces him with someone else. The future Ice King is not born in some villainous lair. He's assembled piece by piece on ruined sidewalks, in abandoned arcades, under collapsed overpasses, where Marceline falls asleep to the sound of him apologizing to no one in particular. Think about that for a second. All the later weirdness of Ooo, the penguins, the princess napping, the bizarre songs about fries, has its origin point here, in a guardian walking through a dead mall, leaving frozen footprints that will outlast the building. We're going to see echoes of this everywhere. A half-buried note he drops becomes an artifact. A blast of ice that saves Marceline becomes a glacier that redirects a river, nudging a future kingdom's borders a few meters to the left. Some scavenger watches him from a distance and tells their children about the wandering ice wizard. And 300 years later, that story is a legend about a mad king at the center of time. Their wandering doesn't rebuild civilization. It doesn't have to. It just seeds the timeline with tiny accidental anchors. A frozen overpass that will someday be a playground. A stash of canned food that lets some unknown survivor live long enough to have descendants who will eventually call themselves Candy People, or Fire People, or something stranger. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe is quietly rearranging itself around one man's fraying mind and one child's stubborn will to keep going. And the crown keeps whispering. The gaps in Simon's memory get wider. Names slip, faces blur. Marceline grows, inch by inch, as the world around her shifts from grey to green to pastel, from wasteland to proto-Ooo, while he moves from Simon to Ice King without ever getting a chance to stop and read the warning label on his own existence. Somewhere ahead on this timeline, he will vanish into that persona completely, and she will be left to grow up in a universe that has decided to be magical again. The ruins will become dungeons. The radiation will become wizards. The trauma will become folklore. And as you fall asleep, we're just reaching the edge of that transition, where the last traces of the old world are about to meet the first bright, unsettling colors of the new. Because the next time we find Marceline, she won't be riding on anyone's back. She'll be standing on her own, in a land of Ooo that barely remembers the man who froze it into shape. From ruins to roots, how magic and mutation grow the land of Ooo. So when we say the world barely remembers Simon, we're not talking about a few awkward generations forgetting their grandpa. We're talking about centuries exhaling, whole lifetimes sliding past like slow breaths, while the scars of the Mushroom War sink into the ground and grow over. Let's start high above the planet, where you can watch time like a lazy river. The skyscrapers you recognize from the old world don't explode dramatically. They just lean, rust, and finally kneel. Glass windows blink out one by one. Vines slip through office carpets. Roots pry apart highways. Forests reclaim exit ramps. Shopping malls become mossy terrariums for raccoons with too many eyes and birds that accidentally learn to talk. Radiation doesn't just poison. In that specifically Adventure Time way, it collaborates, nudging DNA into shapes that are whimsical and quietly terrifying at the same time. Here is the thing. Magic was already there. Ancient elementals, crowns and comets, beings that remember a colder, stranger universe. But as the old technological reality collapses, those forces stop being rare events and start becoming background noise. Spells leak out of forgotten artifacts. The ice crown hums in the distance like a broken satellite. Elemental energies seep into groundwater, into clouds, into the soil. The rules of existence soften. A puddle can wake up with opinions. A sword can develop a grudge. Weirdness becomes the new normal. Think about that for a second. From the ground, it doesn't feel cosmic. It just feels lived in. You're a mutated wolf trying to raise your pups near a crater that glows at night. You're a fungus colony that accidentally achieved sentience and now has to develop a personality. You're a candy golem who doesn't know why you're alive, only that you really want to organize the pantry. Over long, quiet centuries, Ooo stops being a disaster zone and starts being an ecosystem, not just a place, but a phase in Earth's life cycle, the way adolescence is a phase in a person's timeline. This is Earth after its nervous breakdown, where candy people, talking animals, demons, and living slimes all carve out ecological niches. Fire tribes gather around volcanic vents, learning to treat lava like both home and heritage. Slime bogs congeal in lowlands, oozing out proto-societies that are half community, half puddle. At the edges of reality, the nightosphere leaks influence into the mortal plane like a bad neighbor's music, warping dreams, cutting little doorways where there shouldn't be any. We're going to pass through those ages quickly, but down on the ground they feel endless. Small candy settlements huddle together, bright and fragile against a ruined horizon. Early ice fortresses rise and fall, wandering powers drift through the landscape. Lone wizards, minor elementals, hungry spirits testing how much power this new universe will let them have. And then, somewhere amid the ruins and the roots and the half-finished kingdoms, one particular experimenter starts taking notes, starts making plans, starts growing people. The candy coalesces around a mind that wants order. Princess Bubblegum steps onto the stage of Ooo, and the world stops just happening and starts being designed. Bubblegum's genesis, building the Candy Kingdom from scratch, Princess Bubblegum doesn't arrive with a crown. She arrives with a clipboard. Let's start in the dark, echoing halls beneath the future Candy Kingdom, where the air smells like sugar and chemical sterilizer, and the walls are lined with vats of glowing pink biomass. This is Bonibel Bubblegum before the pageantry, before the tiara, standing ankle-deep in a world that has fallen apart, and deciding very calmly that she is going to build one that does what she wants, not wish for order, manufacture it. Here is the thing about Bubblegum. She is both subject and scientist, both experiment and experimenter. She is candy that woke up with a brain sharp enough to remember the end of the old world and to read the ruins like a lab report. In a universe where magic has leaked back into reality, she chooses the scalpel and the beaker, not the spellbook. And from those vats, she pulls shapes. Lumpy proto-candy people, half set and half sentient. Citizens in beta testing who sometimes melt, sometimes wander off, sometimes fail the experiment of existence entirely. You watch her, in that specifically Adventure Time way, being simultaneously maternal and terrifying. She is their mother. She is also their monarch. She names them, teaches them, and then drafts them into a social contract they never had the chance to negotiate. Peppermint Butler is not just a butler, he is a proof of concept. The banana guards are not just guards, they are literal security protocols given legs and nervous smiles. Think about that for a second. Your ruler built you in a lab, and then wrote the laws you live under. From the outside, the Candy Kingdom looks gentle. Pastel towers, gumdrop houses, a moat of pink punch. But structurally, it is a fortress. High walls, clear rules, scheduled fun, curfews enforced by guards who are more anxious than violent. It becomes one of the first real pockets of order in Ooo, a brightly colored firewall against the chaos outside, safety and sweetness as public branding, surveillance, contingency plans, and doomsday devices as the back-end code. She smiles. She also has a dungeon, because Bubblegum remembers more than almost anyone. Her lifespan stretches back toward the Mushroom War's fallout, through the era when Simon wandered with the crown eating his mind, through the slow rise of magic as a dominant force again. While most of Ooo treats history like a rumor, she treats it like data. Every catastrophe becomes another data point in a centuries-long project. Never let this happen to my people, even if I had to build those people myself. And as she refines her citizens and thickens her walls, the rest of the map is not standing still. Far to the north, the Ice Crown is consolidating its own lonely kingdom around a man who used to be Simon. To the south and beneath, Fire and Slime are condensing into rival elemental empires. In the shadows, the Nitosphere is drafting its infernal paperwork. We're going to watch the board fill with kingdoms, each one a different answer to the same question. In a broken timeline, how much control will you take? Kingdoms crystallize, ice, fire, slime, and the Nitosphere's shadow so the board fills in, quietly. The Ice Crown has chosen its king. Fire and Slime are waking up beneath the crust, and the Nitosphere is licking its lips at the contract potential. Here is the thing. From above, from that calm prismo perspective at the center of time, you can watch entire kingdoms crystallize around single, lonely desires. Let's start in the cold. The Ice Kingdom doesn't drop in fully formed like a prefab castle. It accretes, century by century, around the crown's influence. Glaciers crawl outward, slow white fingers gripping ruined skyscrapers and frozen oceans. Weird penguins, drawn by a signal they don't understand, migrate in shuffling little parades, as if the universe pushed shuffle on seabird evolution. At the center, Simon, now mostly Ice King, builds spires and bridges and a throne room out of blue ice. Not because he has a plan, but because the crown keeps whispering architectural impulses into his fractured mind. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by a power older than the Mushroom War, replaying an ancient elemental role he never auditioned for. Beneath all that frost, deep under Oo's scarred crust, the Fire Kingdom is remembering itself. Fire elementals have been here since before humanity, flaring up in primordial battles that Evergreen quietly echoes, but now that raw heat condenses into a dynasty. Lava canals, basalt towers, a throne surrounded by rivers of magma. This is monarchy as controlled eruption. Each ruler inherits both literal flame and a long, angry memory of ancient elemental conflicts, so the kingdom's history reads like a family argument written in volcanic rock. Princesses and kings rise and fall, but the pattern holds. Harsh laws, passionate loyalties, sudden coups that feel less like politics and more like a solar flare trying to reinvent etiquette. Then there's the Slime Kingdom, which is less crisp. Its borders wobble. Its rulers ooze. Records melt into gossip. This is the part of the timeline that refuses to be a neat scroll. It's more like someone spilled a smoothie on the historical archives. We're going to see that Oo's history isn't one clean narrative. It's a multiverse of half-remembered reigns and dissolving empires, and Slime is the reminder that some eras are literally squishy around the edges. Think about that for a second. Even in a universe with cosmic wishmasters, the official record can still be, it was gooey for a while, and in parallel, not above or below, but sideways, the Nitosphere hums. A dimension of contracts, loopholes, and demonic office politics, forever looking for ways to spill into Ooo. Every incursion adds a new layer of bureaucracy to the timeline. Invasion forms, sole ownership clauses, visitations that feel less like hauntings and more like bad audits. Its power isn't just brute force, it's fine print. It's the horror of realizing reality itself might be governed by paperwork. Zoom out. The map of Ooo dims into twilight, and each realm glows: a blue shard of ice, a red core of fire, a green-gold smear of slime, a pulsing purple bruise where the nitosphere presses against reality. For a moment, it looks like a strategy board or a nervous system. And then, hard cut. No map. Just a sagging couch, a TV flickering static, and a glowing pink being lounging with a remote, watching all of it play out like late-night channels in someone else's dream. Enter Prismo, the chill god of wishes between all timelines. We pull back from that flickering static and realize this is not just a busted TV in a weird apartment. This is the window of a god. The couch sags in low gravity. Snack bowls drift in slow motion. And outside the picture frame, there is nothing at all. Just the quiet pressure of every timeline pressing in on one impossible room at the center of time. Let's start with the space itself. The time room floats off the grid of linear history, like someone ripped a bachelor pad out of 1983 and hung it in the multiverse. There's a coffee table with no legs but perfect orbit, a jar of pickles that has seen more apocalypses than any hero, a TV remote that can scroll through realities. On the walls, not art, but screens. Hundreds, thousands, an infinite mosaic of ooh and not ooh. One screen shows prehistoric elementals roaring through ice and fire. Another shows the mushroom war blooming over a broken earth. Another, far off, shows Shermian Beth wandering ruins that used to be familiar. In the middle of it all, lounging like its late-night cable, is Prismo, a flat, glowing pink outline of a person, living graffiti on the air. He is not a wizard. He is not a demon. Here is the thing. Prismo is a wish-granting entity who exists only because, somewhere in a boring corner of reality, an old man is asleep. Prismo is that man's dream given cosmic power. Wake the dreamer, and the god dissolves. Think about that for a second. The entire wish economy of the universe is balanced on whether one guy hits snooze. That tension defines his rules. Prismo grants wishes, one wish per person per lifetime, and the rules are precise in that specifically Adventure Time way. You have to say the wish clearly. You cannot wish for more wishes. Once reality bends, there is no casual undo. No, my bad. Control-Z the universe. He interprets your words literally, but not cruelly. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by procedures older than he is. A cosmic civil servant in an 80s lounge, filing metaphysical paperwork every time someone blurts out their deepest desire. And yet, we're going to see that he's not just a plot device to shuffle characters between timelines. Prismo is the embodiment of the show's favorite contradiction: cosmic scale and personal loneliness in the same frame. He can watch the Candy Kingdom rise from Bubblegum's lab bench, see Simon discover the Ice Crown before the fallout settles, trace every branching universe where the Fire Kingdom never ignites or the Slime Kingdom drowns the world. But he cannot leave this couch. He cannot change his own existence. He can see all of time, but he is always waiting for someone to call. In this video, we're going to follow the wishes that finally break his quiet routine. Because the first wishes we examine won't just tweak someone's love life or fix a single tragedy. They will fracture entire timelines, up to and including one where the mushroom war never really happens the way you remember it. Somewhere on Prismo's wall, that universe is already playing. The question is, who asked for it? Not a genie, not a monkey's paw. How Prismo's wishes actually work? The answer, of course, is Prismo. But here is the thing. He is not a wish-granting buzzsaw waiting to tear the universe apart for fun. He is not a blue Disney genie singing about freedom. He is not the monkey's paw, curling its fingers every time you get poetic with your desire. He just sits at the center of time, in his cozy cosmic living room, and gives you exactly what you ask for. Let's start by separating him from those classic archetypes. A monkey's paw twists your words on purpose. A trickster genie hunts for loopholes, punishing you for being greedy or vague. Prismo doesn't do that. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than he is. Rules that say, if a wish is spoken clearly, it must manifest literally, in reality. So when the Lich asks for the extinction of all life, Prismo doesn't cackle and add a joke clause. He quietly presses the cosmic button, and an entire timeline bends around that sentence. That is where scarcity comes in. One wish per person, per lifetime. No wishing for more wishes, no do-overs. Think about that for a second. In a multiverse full of infinite Finns and Jakes and Princess Bubblegums, each individual consciousness gets a single, irreversible tectonic shift. When Finn burns his wish on undoing the Lich's extinction event, that is not a casual reset. That is his once-ever cosmic move, spent creating Farm World instead of simply rewinding time. And yet, Prismo is weirdly gentle about it. He grants what you say, not what you meant, but he also leans over from the couch and nudges. He rephrases. He asks, "Are you sure?" You can hear that subtle, caring side when he coaches Jake through wording, or when he tries to steer the Lich away from pure annihilation and towards something the universe can actually survive. He is a civil servant of desire, trying to help you file the least catastrophic version of your cosmic paperwork, because there are things he cannot, or will not, do. He can't just erase other cosmic entities like the Lich, Golb, or the elementals from existence. They are structural parts of reality, the way the Mushroom War is a structural wound in Oo's history. So instead of clean deletions, we get reroutes. Branches, alternate timelines where the same forces play out under different conditions. Farm World exists because Prismo redirected the Lich's wish rather than nullifying it. Finn's death-resurrection loops. Jake's near-eternal hangs in the time room. These are all workarounds, not obliterations. In this video, we're going to lean on these rules, like a map legend. Once you know that every major wish is a one-time cosmic event, interpreted literally, constrained by what Prismo is allowed to touch, you can start tracing the fractures in Oo's history. You can follow how a single sentence spoken in the time room ripples out into Simon's tragedy, into Shermie and Beth's distant future, into worlds where the Mushroom War never happened the way you remember. And from here, we can finally walk through those branches, one sleepy timeline at a time. The old man dreaming, when Prismo stops being a metaphor, so now that we're tracing those fractures, one sleepy timeline at a time, we have to talk about the strangest fracture of all, the one that isn't in Ooh, or in Farm World, or even in the multiverse. It's in a bedroom. Let's start with the twist, and let's say it plainly. Prismo is not just like a dream. He is the ongoing, continuous dream of an old man sleeping in another dimension. And his entire existence, his power, his time room at the center of time, all of that is ontologically stapled to one fragile biological fact, that this man keeps sleeping. If the man wakes up, the Wishmaster disappears. The screens go dark, the timelines keep going, but their watcher is gone. Here is the thing. Adventure Time actually shows you the body. It's not glamorous, no glowing sigils, no angelic choir, just a frail old man lying on a simple bed, skin thin and papery, chest rising and falling in slow, uncertain rhythm. Tubes snake into his arms, machines hum and blink softly beside him, like tired little robots trying their best. He is still, completely still, and at the same time his dream, Prismo, is bouncing on a couch in a cosmic bachelor pad, cracking jokes, making pickles, chatting with Finn and Jake while infinite universes flicker on the walls. Simple, declarative. The contrast is brutal. A sleeping body that might not make it through the night. A two-dimensional wish god surfing the multiverse. It's a hospital room reflected as a cosmic arcade cabinet. Think about that for a second. Every time Prismo laughs, somewhere a heart monitor beeps. Every time he rewinds a timeline, a pair of old lungs quietly, stubbornly keeps going. And then the existential part hits. If Prismo is only a dream, what does it mean that he's lonely, that he gets bored, that he cares about Oo's history, that he mourns when worlds end? Is a dream responsible for its own ethics, or is the dreamer on the hook? When Prismo refuses to twist a wish maliciously, when he bends the rules just enough to save Finn, is that the old man's subconscious morality, or a new consciousness blooming inside borrowed brainwaves? In this video, we're going to keep circling that question without ever quite pinning it down, because that uncertainty is the point. Ontology professors would absolutely weep over this setup. A dream that has friends, a dream that dies and resurrects when the sleeper dozes off again, a dream that sits at the center of time, watching every possible Ooo unfold on those infinite screens, while the original nervous system that generates him lies in a dim room no one in Ooo will ever visit. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the cosmic and the mundane are just two sides of the same worn-out pillow. And here is where it becomes our roadmap. If Prismo can see every version of Ooo, he can see every era of its timeline at once. Prehistoric elementals, the Mushroom War's flash of nuclear light, Finn and Jake's tiny heroic window, Shermie and Beth picking through the distant future. From his couch, it's all just channels. So as you drift off, we're going to borrow that perspective. We're going to let Prismo's wall of universes turn into a sleepy storybook and walk through Oo's history era by era as calmly as a dream that refuses to wake up. Between power and dependence, Prismo as the heart of Oo's story. So we're already on the couch with him, watching Ooo flicker past like late-night reruns. And here is the thing. Prismo isn't just a convenient narrator for this timeline. He is the timeline's emotional center of gravity. He lives between channels, between every era, between every possible version of how this all could have gone. Let's start with the contrasts that make him feel so quietly wrong and quietly perfect at the same time. Prismo is infinite power versus total dependence on a single sleeping old man. Cosmic awareness versus physical confinement to one room at the center of time. Casual laid-back humor versus a deep unspoken loneliness that hangs in the air like static from all those screens. He can see the multiverse, but he cannot stand up and walk to the door. He can rewrite reality with one clear wish, but he cannot nudge his dreamer awake or tuck him in more comfortably. He lives between God and hostage, between omniscience and helplessness, between being the most important being in existence and being technically not even real in the legal sense of the universe. Think about that for a second. Every timeline we're going to drift through tonight, he has already watched, rewound, and watched again, and he still can't change his own situation. And that between is not just his problem. Ooo itself exists between apocalypse and rebirth, between the Mushroom War's nuclear fire and the Candy Kingdom's pastel optimism, between science and magic, with Simon's research notebooks on the other, between childhood and adulthood, where Finn's heroic fantasies keep colliding with messy, grown-up consequences. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the whole universe is a teenager, old enough to understand death, still young enough to believe in wishes. Prismo is that tension made visible. He embodies the show's central question: how do you live meaningfully when you're aware of every possible outcome, including your own fragility and eventual end? He knows that Shermie and Beth will be wandering a distant Ooo long after Finn and Jake are gone. He knows that the Ice Crown will break Simon and that the elementals will rise and fall and rise again. He knows every way the Lich can win and every tiny, ridiculous way he can lose, and yet he still puts on movies. He still makes pickles. He still cares. So as we move through Oo's history, we're going to keep coming back to that couch, back to his vantage point between detachment and attachment, between watching and intervening. When we talk about prehistoric elementals, imagine them as an old channel he barely visits anymore. When we reach the Mushroom War, imagine him wincing at a scene he has seen a billion times. When Finn and Jake show up, imagine the volume turning up just a little. Pattern interrupt for you. Of all the cosmic inflection points he could focus on, all the world-ending spells and legendary crowns. Imagine Prismo quietly flipping through every era of Ooo like late-night TV, and then pausing on one particular moment. Not a battle, not a prophecy. A wish about a sandwich. A wish that looks throwaway, feels trivial, and will, somehow, secretly, save the universe. Jake's sandwich wish, the most important lunch in the multiverse. So we land there, not on a battlefield, not at the Mushroom War's first flash of nuclear light, but in the time room at the center of time, watching a dog ask for lunch. Finn is buzzing with possibility. You can feel it, like a kid who has been handed the remote to the multiverse. And Jake? Jake stretches back on the cosmic couch, looks into the face of near-infinite power, and uses his one wish for the perfect sandwich. Here is the thing. That is not a gag the show throws away. That is a thesis statement in deli form. Prismo lays out the rules again, almost casually. One wish per person per lifetime. Say it clearly, no wishing for more wishes. This is cosmic bureaucracy, but with beanbags. Jake listens, nods, and then delivers this beautifully specific desire, down to the type of meat, the crispness of the pickle, the structural integrity of the bread. And Prismo just makes it. No thunder, no crack in reality, just a sandwich that appears on a plate and is, by every metric that matters, perfect. We're going to slow down with that image for a second. A post-apocalyptic universe, born out of nuclear fire, haunted by crowns and elementals and liches, and the wish that hits the time room is about flavor and texture and the right balance of condiments. Jake takes a bite. His eyes close. It is transcendent. And crucially, nothing else happens. No ironic twist, no secret cost bubbling out into the timeline. The wish is literal, clean, and kind. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the show is telling you that not every encounter with power has to be tragic. Think about that for a second. Jake could have wished to rewind the Mushroom War, to rewrite Simon's fate, to crown himself king of all existence. Instead, he picks a moment of pure, embodied joy, pleasure over control, presence over domination. In a universe where magic and radiation have warped existence into something barely recognizable, this is a quiet manifesto. The point is not to fix everything. The point, sometimes, is to enjoy one perfect bite while time keeps flowing, and Prismo's reaction matters. He laughs, he's delighted, he leans into the absurdity of granting a sandwich instead of a reality reset. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than time itself, and within those rules, he is visibly relieved when a wish does not threaten to tear the multiverse into shards. This is how their friendship deepens, over snacks, over movies, over the shared relief that for once no timeline has to die tonight. But the center of time does not stay gentle. The same cosmic civil servant, the same rules, the same literal interpretation that gave Jake his perfect lunch, will soon be aimed at a very different desire. Another visitor will stand where Jake stood, and Prismo will hear a wish not for flavor, but for extinction. The Lich will speak, Prismo will obey, and the universe will learn what happens when the sandwich rules are applied to the end of all life. The Lich's wish, extinction as a sentence, not a scream. The sandwich rules do not change. The guest does. The skeleton steps forward, dragging the cold of the grave into Prismo's cozy bachelor pad at the center of time. No ranting, no gloating, just that empty, patient hunger wrapped in a humanoid shape. And then, in a voice that sounds like a verdict being read, he says it, "I wish for the extinction of all life." 5 words, not a scream, a sentence. Here is the thing, the time room doesn't explode. The screens don't shatter. Prismo doesn't clutch his metaphorical pearls and say, "Whoa, too far, man." He can't. He is bound by rules older than this universe. One wish per person per lifetime. Clearly spoken. Interpreted literally. The same quiet bureaucracy that produced a perfect sandwich now has to process the end of existence. Watch how calm Prismo is. He doesn't summon a cosmic death beam. He doesn't wave a hand and erase "ooh" in front of you. Instead, he leans into his actual power, not fireworks, but edits to reality itself. Somewhere beneath the shag carpet and the VHS tapes, the multiverse shudders, timelines flex, and instead of annihilation ripping through the main continuity, a new branch grows off the side of creation like a scar. That scar is Farm World. We're going to sit with that for a second, because it matters. Prismo grants the wish. He must. But he also routes it. He lets the Lich's desire cash out in a different account. In one particular history, the Mushroom War goes another way. Simon, the crown, the birth of Ooo, all of it tilt. The Lich's extinction wish is honored, but not here, not now, not in the timeline you've been sleeping in. Farm World is what happens when the Mushroom War never fully melts into magic and whimsy. No Candy Kingdom built person by a pink monarch scientist. No Land of Ooo as a playground of elementals and talking rain clouds. Just a harsher earth, ice and wreckage, where survival is practical instead of poetic. Think about that for a second. Same war, same bomb, different outcome, different Finn. In that specifically Adventure Time way, it's both grounded and deeply cosmic. Farmworld Finn isn't a chosen hero of a magical kingdom. He's a kid with a hat, had a family and a farm, living in the long shadow of nuclear winter. The Lich still exists, but the path to him is colder, more mundane, less enchanted, and more tragic. No stretchy dog, no treehouse, just the slow grind of a world that never quite healed. And in the middle of all this, there's Prismo's ethics. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than you itself. So he threads a needle. The wish is granted, but its blast radius is quarantined in a separate timeline. He doesn't break the rules, but he bends the multiverse around his compassion. If you want to understand how far Ooo can bend without breaking, you have to leave it. You have to walk out along that fracture line into Farmworld and trace this colder, harsher history all the way to its frozen heart, Farmworld. A harder, colder echo of Oo's history. So when you step over that fracture line, you don't land in a candy-colored joke universe. You land in dirt, in snow, in rust. Farmworld is what happens when the same cosmic wound never scabs over into whimsy, when the Mushroom War's blast radius stays visible in every fence post and frozen river, instead of melting into singing clouds and hot dog nights. Let's start with the look of it, because aesthetics are history you can see. In mainline Ooo, the ruins are background gags, a buried subway car here, a crooked skyscraper there, all wrapped in bright moss and candy architecture. In Farmworld, the ruins never became charming. Wooden farmhouses lean against broken highways. Snowdrifts pile up around dead billboards. The sky feels heavier, like the universe forgot to turn the saturation slider back up. Magic exists, but it doesn't throw a party about it. It lurks. Here is the thing. That different landscape raises a different Finn. Farmworld Finn is not the heroic chosen one raised by a magic dog in a treehouse. He is a teenager with calloused hands, a mother to protect, and little siblings who get cold when the firewood runs out. His relationship to danger is not adventure, it is agriculture-adjacent disaster management. Wolves, raiders, thin ice, the quiet terror of a winter that might last too long. When he fights, it isn't to level up, it's to make sure there is a tomorrow. Think about that for a second. Same basic soul, same cosmic slot in the timeline, but the daily grind of existence rewires his desire. Mainline Finn wishes for quests and meaning. Farmworld Finn wishes the crops don't fail and that nobody he loves vanishes into the snow. The heroic arc is still there, but it's been forced through a narrower, harsher aperture. And then there's the Ice Crown, which is where Prismo's little quarantine experiment really shows its teeth. In Ooo, the crown turns Simon into Ice King over centuries, a tragic slow-motion collapse that ripples through Marceline, through the Candy Kingdom, through the emotional weather of the whole series. In Farmworld, the crown drops into a culture that never normalized magic. Its power is not an eccentric nuisance, it's an existential weapon. Alternate Simon, alternate Ice King, alternate catastrophe. The same artifact, the same rules, but the emotional geometry warps. Instead of a lonely goofball villain, you get a frozen apocalypse waiting for one bad decision. We're going to keep seeing this pattern. Same cosmic forces, different cultural container. Farmworld has no Candy Kingdom to absorb chaos with bubblegum bureaucracy, no playful dungeons where danger comes with loot and theme music. It has barns, guns, and prayerful caution. The multiverse doesn't change the ingredients, it changes the recipes. And then, pattern interrupt. We pull back. The snow and gunmetal colors flicker, and suddenly you're in the time room again. Prismo is on his couch at the center of time, remote in hand, watching Ooo Finn and Farmworld Finn on two different screens, flipping between them like channels. He laughs at the same moments. He winces at the same wounds. He is quietly, impossibly rooting for both timelines to find a way through. Because from his vantage point, they're not alternate histories. They're the same wish, echoing. Finn's counter-wish. Undoing. Redirecting, and the cost of fixing time. Prismo flips the channel one more time, and you can almost feel the remote click echo through the multiverse. On one screen, the Lich's wish, an empty, airless Earth. On the other, Farmworld, Nuclear winter and shotguns and Finn with both arms. The horror is different, but it's still horror. Here is the thing. Finn is the first person in this whole cosmic mess who reacts not as a villain and not as a detached wishmaster, but as a scared kid who still believes reality can be fixed if you just say the right words. So when he finally gets his turn, when Prismo's eyes slide toward him, Finn doesn't wish to erase the Lich's wish. He wishes that the Lich wasn't the Lich anymore. Think about that for a second. That wording is everything. Prismo could have snapped the universe back to pre-Lich conditions and called it a day. He doesn't. Instead, the wish rewrites the conditions under which the Lich's power can exist. In Farm World, that becomes the Lich trapped inside a baby, a cosmic extinction event compressed into something you have to burp. It's not deletion, it's containment. The Lich's desire for the end of all life is still in there, but it's wrapped in new flesh, new context, new timeline. From the center of time, Prismo watches the layers stack. There is the original Ooo timeline you know, where the Mushroom War blooms, magic returns, and Finn and Jake grow up under Princess Bubblegum's quietly authoritarian pastel empire. There is the Lich-altered branch, the pure extinction line where existence just stops. And now there is the Finn-corrected branch, Farm World, where the Mushroom War never fully ends, and reality limps forward under ice and fallout. 3 timelines, 1 wish, all visible to Prismo-light overlapping transparencies on his wall of screens. And we're going to notice something important about Prismo here. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than time itself. As a cosmic bureaucrat, he interprets Finn's wish as generously as the system will allow. No erasing prior wishes. No violating the 1 wish per person constraint. But within those rules, he bends reality toward mercy. He nudges the Lich from pure annihilation into a weird domestic form of danger. He preserves the original Ooo while still honoring the Lich's already spent wish. It's damage control as metaphysics, in that specifically Adventure Time way. The result is both comforting and deeply unsettling. Because these branches don't vanish when the camera leaves them. They keep going. Farm World keeps mutating out there in the snow. The Dead Universe branch hangs like a silent error message in the multiverse. And tiny perturbations from all of this bleed forward into Finn and Jake's era, a relic that shouldn't exist, a dream that feels too vivid, a prophecy that references a world that never was. They never notice. Why would they? But from Prismo's couch, you can already see the next ripple forming, the next wish lining up, the next quiet catastrophe about to slide into place. Finn and Jake's era begins, heroes in a healed but weird world, and then, very quietly, we leave the center of time. The screens fade, the cosmic couch recedes, and you drop into the baseline Land of Ooo as Finn knows it first. Bright skies over a broken earth, dungeons tucked into the ribs of old skyscrapers, rivers winding through craters that used to be suburbs. It is dangerous, yes, but it's also weirdly cheerful, like the universe put a video game skin over an extinction event and called it good. Here is the thing. For Finn, this is not a haunted wasteland. This is home. The Candy Kingdom is just the place where your princess friend lives, not a post-nuclear bioengineering experiment. The Ice Kingdom is a jagged crown of blue mountains, not a frozen grief engine powered by an ancient artifact. He runs across rusted highways and collapsed overpasses the way you might run across a playground. The apocalypse is just the background art. And Jake, the magic dog with the stretch powers, is perfectly calibrated to that reality. He naps through monster attacks. He treats cursed swords like mildly annoying chores. Together they move through Ooo like 2 kids speedrunning a dungeon crawler, turning the ruins of a dead civilization into co-op content. Think about that for a second. All the horror the show has already seeded into the timeline has been metabolized into adventure. Let's start with how their early quests quietly map the world. One day, it's a trip to the Candy Kingdom, where Princess Bubblegum rules a population she literally created. Another day, it's a visit to the Fire Kingdom, a volcanic court of flame people who embody one of the ancient elementals without anyone saying the word elemental out loud yet. Then, a casual side mission in the Ice Kingdom, where a lonely wizard in a crown kidnaps princesses, because he doesn't know how to ask for friends. No one pauses the episode to say, "This hill used to be a missile silo. This cavern used to be a subway line. This magic comes from the Mushroom War tearing a hole in reality." Instead, each dungeon, each kingdom, each quest quietly pins another location on the mental map of Ooo. Over time, you realize you can navigate this world in your head. The timeline becomes geography. Emotionally, this era plays like pure episodic fun. Finn screams battle cries, Jake makes breakfast. Enemies respawn next week. But there are hairline fractures. Ice King's loneliness seeps through the jokes. Princess Bubblegum's control issues flicker when she talks about her people like lab projects. Marceline shows up with a bass guitar and a 1,000-yard stare, and suddenly a silly vampire queen feels older than the universe. We're going to see those cracks widen. As Finn and Jake grow up, Oo's buried history starts pushing back through artifacts, prophecies, and people who remember too much. And the timeline stops being a backdrop and starts behaving like a character with its own unfinished business. Dungeons, ruins, and relics. Finn's quests as archaeology. Those cracks widen every time Finn and Jake kick open a dungeon door. On paper, it's classic fantasy. Torches, traps, a weird slime on the floor that you definitely should not touch. But here is the thing. In Ooo, a dungeon is never just a dungeon. It's a cross-section of the timeline. Every skeleton in armor, every flickering computer, every broken exit sign half buried in moss is a fossil of pre-war reality, quietly insisting that this magical universe used to be our world. Let's start with how the show frames these adventures. Finn and Jake think they're doing hero business or dungeon crawls, but what we're going to see, if we slow down, is two kids doing accidental archaeology. In Dungeon, they wander through a maze of spike pits and monsters, but the walls are poured concrete, the doors are industrial, the geometry feels like an abandoned military facility that someone reskinned with magic. The quest is framed as gaining power. The background is about a civilization that lost it. Think about that for a second. You're watching Finn swing a sword at a slime, but behind him, there's a rusted ladder going up to nowhere, or a control panel that no one in the episode even comments on. Old tech, VHS tapes, bunkers, vending machines fused into dungeon walls. Adventure Time keeps scattering these relics like breadcrumbs through the multiverse of Oo's landscape. The boys don't understand them, not really. A CRT monitor is just a magic box. A fallout shelter is just a sweet cave. The joke works, but it also anchors the fantasy in a buried, radioactive timeline. Those recurring relics are how the show trusts you. No exposition dump. No character turns to the camera and says, "This is post-apocalyptic Earth." Instead, you get episodes like The Vault, where a ruined city flashes by in fragments. Or The Creeps, where an old house party murder mystery is staged inside what looks suspiciously like a human-era mansion. The rules are simple. If you're paying attention, the universe opens up. If you're not, it's just a fun dungeon. And Finn himself is part of the evidence. Simon and Marcy walk through similar ruins with trauma in their bones. They remember the sirens, the hunger, the way time stretched after the Mushroom War. Finn walks through with curiosity. He is fearless, but not because the world is safe, because his generation is distant enough from the catastrophe that the ruins have become playgrounds instead of grave markers. That emotional distance is its own timestamp on the timeline. There is sadness there, and optimism. The exhaustion of Simon's era has been replaced by Finn's restless desire to explore, to poke at the edges of existence without fully grasping how sharp they are. Pattern interrupt for you. Imagine Prismo at the center of time, watching Finn jab a dusty keyboard in some forgotten bunker, laughing as the monitor fizzles to life. Then the camera cuts hard to Simon in the past, hunched over an almost identical machine, fingers shaking as he searches for any signal, any help, any wish that could save a child in a dying universe. Same technology, same reality. Two different centuries of fear and play colliding in one quiet, haunted glow. And from here, those echoes are only going to get louder. Ice King's tragedy in real time, Simon's past bleeding into Finn's present. The glow from Finn's monitor fades, and we're back in the Ice King's dark little castle, where the only light is a TV, a freezer, and the quiet hum of a crown that has been rewriting one man's reality for almost 1,000 years. Let's start with how you first meet him. He's a joke. A blue, nosy wizard who keeps crash-landing in Finn and Jake's life like an annoying pop-up ad. With frost powers, he kidnaps princesses. He writes terrible songs. He third-wheels their adventures with the desperate energy of someone who has mistaken enemy for invite. In early episodes, he's not tragic. He's just loud, just intrusive, just a villain, with no real timeline, no real history, orbiting the edges of their story. Here is the thing. Adventure Time never leaves a pattern empty. Ice King's obsession with princesses, his need to be included, his random pockets of archaic knowledge, they all feel off, like echoes of a conversation you walked into halfway through. Think about that for a second. Why would a supposedly ancient ice wizard record home movies on VHS? Why does he have tapes at all in a magical universe of crystal balls and cosmic wishes? Holly Jolly Secrets cracks that open. We're going to watch Finn and Jake binge his tapes for laughs, only to slide slowly into horror. On screen, Simon Petrikov appears, human, nervous, apologizing to a camera as the mushroom war eats the world behind him. You hear him talk about the crown, about the power, about losing himself. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, the joke of creepy old ice guy with a camcorder quietly dies and is reborn as man documenting his own disappearance from existence. By the time Simon and Marcy rolls around, the past is not just leaking into the present, it is flooding it. Post-war Simon, crown on his head, wandering a ruined city with a little vampire girl on his shoulders, is the same person who will one day crash through Finn's window, demanding a date with Princess Bubblegum. Same body, same soul, different mind. The crown doesn't erase him in one blast of cosmic power. It sands him down across centuries, memory by memory, until only instincts remain. So Ice King's princess kidnappings, those are corrupted muscle memories of Simon shielding princesses like young Marceline from danger. His need to be around heroes, a warped echo of traveling with survivors, trying to keep them alive in a poisoned timeline. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than he is, written into the crown by elemental forces from long before the Mushroom War. And Finn and Jake feel that shift. Enemy. Nuisance. Then project. Then friend. They prank him, then pity him, then defend him. Because once you've seen the tapes, you cannot unsee the man trapped inside the wizard. Their relationship becomes a live-action diagram of Oo's history. The more they learn, the less simple good guys and bad guys becomes, and the more survival starts to look like a long series of terrible compromises. But Simon's tragedy doesn't stop at their era. His identity ripples outward into distant futures, alternate timelines, and wishes made in Prismo's time room. Somewhere at the center of time, the universe is still arguing about whether Simon and Ice King are one person or two, and the answer to that question is going to bend entire timelines around it. Elementals reawaken. Candy, ice, fire, and slime rebalance the world, and while the multiverse is arguing about Simon, Ooo itself starts remembering something older than any crown, older than any wish. The planet has its own opinions, its own default settings, and in Finn and Jake's era, those settings wake up. Let's start with the elementals. Candy, ice, fire, slime. You already know them as princesses, as individuals with neuroses and ex-boyfriends and tax codes. But here is the thing. The universe does not primarily see Princess Bubblegum as a stressed-out scientist. It sees her as Candy itself, walking around in a lab coat. The same way Ice King is not just a lonely wizard, he is the current mask on an ancient ice spirit that remembers glaciers the way you remember childhood bedrooms. When patient Saint Pym thaws out, that memory comes roaring back. She remembers the pre-war balance, the old rules, when the four elementals quietly partitioned reality into flavors of existence, keeping the world from tearing itself apart. And in that specifically Adventure Time way, her solution to modern chaos is not therapy or mediation, it is a world-scale reset button. So Ooo has a mood swing, a real one. Overnight, landscapes get overwritten like glitched save files. Forests bloom into pastel sugar architecture under PB's influence. Whole biomes calcify into jagged ice spires, oceans boil into flame-choked calderas, valleys dissolve into wobbling slime, cities become deserts, deserts become freezers. Your sense of direction becomes more of a suggestion than a rule. Think about that for a second. You go to sleep in a neutral grassland and wake up in a marshmallow metropolis where the rain is literally gumdrops and the ground wants to hug you. This is not random chaos, it's repetition. The same elemental patterns that shaped prehistoric Earth are trying to reinstall themselves, like an ancient operating system booting over whatever weird software the Mushroom War left behind. The timeline is not a straight line, it is a loop that keeps tracing the same four-colored circuit. Candy, ice, fire, slime, again and again, with different faces. Finn and Jake suddenly stop being just quest guys and start being mediators between geological emotions. They negotiate with Flame Princess not as an ex, but as fire itself, trying to convince a living volcano not to burn the syllabus. They have to talk to PB as both their friend and as a planetary immune response that wants to candy coat every problem. They argue with patience about whether the center of time should be a freezer aisle. We're going to see them grow up here, not by swinging harder, but by talking softer. Eventually, the elementals calm. The reset fails, or succeeds just enough to leave Ooo slightly retuned rather than obliterated. The candy forests remain a little sweeter, the glaciers a little sharper, the lava a little more self-aware. On the surface, equilibrium returns, but equilibrium in Ooo is always cosmetic. Under the frosting, deeper forces are still moving. The Lich quietly waiting for his next angle, Prismo's screens flickering with alternate timelines, wishes, and universes where this reset went very differently. The elementals have reminded the world that cycles are real. The next reminder is going to come from the multiverse itself. The Lich across ages, Death's patient hand on Oo's shoulder. So when the multiverse starts to flex, the first hand you feel on Oo's shoulder isn't gentle, it's bone. It's the Lich, not arriving like a new villain walking on stage, but like an old pressure in the room finally speaking up. Let's start way before Finn, before Bubblegum, before the Candy Kingdom even coagulates into reality. The Lich's origin is stapled to a cosmic event, the Catalyst Comet. In some timelines it brings heroes, in some it brings ideas, but in this one it births annihilation in a cloak. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound to an impulse older than language. Reduce existence to zero, return the universe to silence. Think about that for a second. He's less bad guy and more walking extinction-level event with hobbies. By the time you meet him in Finn and Jake's era, that pressure has already soaked into Ooo. He wears bodies like outfits. First the skeletal sorcerer, later the snail. Then even Princess Bubblegum's form in that specifically Adventure Time way that makes possession look almost casual. He falls into the well of power. He survives holy punches. He rides a magic wish straight out of Prismo's time room. Different angles, same desire. Every move is tuned toward the same endpoint. No life, no noise, no more messy little timelines branching away from the clean line of nothing. Here is the thing. Once wishes get involved, the Lich stops being local. When he stands in the time room and wishes for the extinction of all life, Prismo doesn't argue, doesn't moralize, he just routes the wish into a different branch. Farm World snaps into existence, an entire universe grown like a callus around a single sentence. In that world, the Mushroom War hits harder. Simon never becomes Ice King, and yet the Lich still crystallizes out of the fallout, frozen in a nuclear block, waiting. Different history, same infection. You can travel to the end of the world, or sideways across the multiverse, and some version of him is always there, like mold in the damp corners of time. And that's his real power. Not lasers. Not necromancy. The Lich makes every timeline feel provisional. Prismo is cozy omnipotence at the center of time, watching movies on infinite screens, offering you one wish and a pickle. The Lich is the opposite of that warmth. He is the cold floor underneath the rug, the reminder that every universe Prismo laughs with could, with one bad sentence, be steered toward absolute zero. We're going to slow down for a pattern interrupt. Imagine Prismo, sprawled on his cosmic couch, watching the Lich's moves like a very slow chess game. One pawn forward in mainline, Ooo. A knight jump into farm world, a quiet infiltration of some future branch. Long arcs, patient pressure. Then the camera cuts hard. No Lich, no time room. Just Finn in a little treehouse kitchen, humming, flipping pancakes, burning. One side because Jake is late. That's the gap. Cosmic extinction on one screen, breakfast on the other. And suddenly you understand what's actually at stake when wishes bend timelines and comets fall. Not abstractions, not grand metaphysics, but whether small, noisy mornings like that get to keep existing at all. Rule synthesis. What Oo's history teaches us about wishes and worlds. So let's stay in that kitchen for a second. Pancakes cooling, syrup slowly spreading, and far above it all, at the center of time, a pink two-dimensional wishmaster is quietly filing cosmic paperwork so that morning can keep existing. Here is the thing. Prismo's system actually has rules, and Oo's whole history keeps proving them. Rule 1. One wish per person, per lifetime. Jake spends his on the perfect sandwich, which is both hilarious and completely on brand for a universe where the greatest cosmic power can be used on lunch. The Lich spends his on the extinction of all life, and suddenly every timeline, every kingdom, every little breakfast is on the chopping block. Same rule, different desire, radically different consequences. The wish has to be spoken clearly. No wishing for more wishes, no quiet edits. Prismo interprets literally, but not maliciously. He is not a genie trying to trick you. He is not the monkey's paw waiting to punish your hubris. He's something stranger and more boring. A cosmic civil servant in a beanbag chair, bound to execute whatever comes across his metaphysical desk. And crucially, there is no big red undo button. When the Lich's extinction wish fires, Prismo doesn't rewind reality. Instead, he redirects, shunting that catastrophic desire into an alternate branch. Farm world. When Finn counter-wishes for the Lich to wish for something harmless, Prismo doesn't erase the first wish. He lets a second, carefully phrased wish collide with the first and defang it. No reset, just rerouting. We're going to see this pattern everywhere once you look for it. Edge cases become entire universes. Farm world isn't a throwaway gag. It is the scar tissue of a wish that was too dangerous to let run through the main timeline. Think about that for a second. In this multiverse, bad phrasing doesn't just ruin your day, it births whole realities that have to live with the aftermath. Compared to classic wish archetypes, Prismo is almost disappointingly reasonable. Trickster gods twist your words to teach you a lesson. Genies grant ironic boons. The monkey's paw corrupts your desire into horror. Prismo just shrugs, presses the big metaphysical enter key, and then has to watch the fallout on his infinite screens. There is sadness there. Resignation. The exhaustion of someone who has seen countless wishes warp existence into shapes it was never meant to hold. And that is how these rules quietly sculpt Oo's history. No clean slate after the Mushroom War, just radioactive ruins mutating into magic. No reset for Simon, just one unseen, probably selfless wish that still can't save him from the crown. No erasing the Lich, only branching timelines, lingering consequences, and people who have to keep living in the universes their desires created. So now that the rules are on the table, we can follow those branches beyond Finn and Jake's main adventures, into deaths, resurrections, Shermie and Beth's distant future, and all the possible worlds Prismo can see, but will never, in that specifically Adventure Time way, be allowed to actually join. Between life and afterlife, death, the dead worlds, and cosmic paperwork. So if Prismo's screens show us every branching universe where a wish twisted reality, there's another axis we haven't followed yet. Not left or right along the timeline, not forward into Shermie and Beth's distant future, but down through the floor of existence, into the dead worlds. Let's start with the image the show quietly builds. The afterlife in Adventure Time isn't one cloudy heaven and one fiery pit. It's a stack, a vertical multiverse of death. Each dead world is its own floor with its own rules, aesthetics, and interior design choices. There's the bland, bureaucratic underworld where souls queue up like they're at the world's most existential DMV. There are harsher layers, more nightmarish, where punishment feels baked into the geometry, and above them, brighter realms, gentler, almost pastoral. Together, they form a column that extends Oo's timeline beyond the moment your heart stops. Here is the thing. Death doesn't end your story in this universe. It just moves you to a different level of the same cosmic building. Time still flows. Choices still matter. It's just that your body is no longer invited to the party. At the center of that whole structure stands death. Not as a cackling villain, but as another cosmic bureaucrat with a specific jurisdiction. The flow of souls, the enforcement of contracts, the balance between life and afterlife. He rides a motorcycle, plays bass, and lives in a skull-shaped castle. But functionally, he's a middle manager of mortality. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than Ooo itself, processing the paperwork of existence while people keep rudely dying on schedule. And every so often, those rules intersect with Prismo's. When Finn and Jake bargain for their lives, or when Jake's criminal past catches up with him in the dead world, we're watching two bureaucracies brushing against each other, Death's Office of Souls and Prismo's Office of Wishes. One governs where you go when you're done. The other can nudge how and when you get there. When Finn and Jake cross into the dead worlds, they temporarily step outside the straight line of their own timeline. They see souls waiting, condemned, redeemed. They meet death as a person. They realize that Oo's metaphysics is not just dungeons and quests. It's layers of reality stacked like a cosmic apartment complex. Think about that for a second. Two dudes from a treehouse casually commuting between life, death, and the center of time. From Prismo's vantage point in the time room, all of this is visible. He doesn't just see living timelines, he can tune into afterlives too, like extra channels. Oo's history becomes a building, basements of dead worlds, ground floor of physical existence, rooftops of higher dimensions, and Prismo on the cosmic roof, watching every elevator of every soul go up and down. And we're going to need that image, because in the far future, long after most of Finn and Jake's adventures, their story will circle back through those same realms in Together Again, turning death, the dead worlds, and even Prismo's lonely perspective into the closing of a loop that started way back when they first met, a skeleton with a job. But to understand why that reunion hits so hard, we have to move forward in time first, toward the end of their mortal lives and the quiet moment where the universe finally cashes in every contract they ever signed without reading. Obsidian and glass, Marceline, PB, and the long echo of old wounds, so we move forward in time, like the universe turning a page, and land in a different kind of battlefield, a music venue, a glass city, a relationship that cracked instead of exploded. In Obsidian, the war isn't the mushroom war anymore. It's the long, quiet war between who you were and who you're trying to be. Let's start with the basics. In the distant but familiar future, Marceline and Princess Bubblegum visit the Glass Kingdom, a place literally held together by pressure and fractures. Years ago, a younger, angrier Marceline fought a lava dragon named Lavo there, channeling her heartbreak into a song that was powerful enough to seal a monster and petty enough to scorch a relationship. Now Lavo is waking up. The kingdom is in ruins again, and the two of them have to face both the dragon and the emotional fallout of that fight. It's a kaiju movie about an argument you never really got over. Here is the thing. Obsidian is quietly a timeline map disguised as a couple's therapy session. Marceline's flashbacks pull us into post-war ruins with Simon, where she's a kid wandering through the skeleton of the old world, learning that love and loss arrive on the same schedule as nuclear winters. Then we jump to her punk-era days with Bubblegum, in the early Candy Kingdom years, where PB is still building a state while Marceline is trying to build a life. Think about that for a second. One of them is literally inventing a civilization. The other just wants someone to show up to the gig. Marceline's lifespan stretches across all of this. She watches the end of one reality with Simon, lives through Finn and Jake's age, and keeps going into these soft neon futures where the Glass Kingdom has legends about her, like she's a natural disaster with a bass guitar. She is not a historian. She is not even objective. She is a living archive of how Ooo feels as time passes, carrying every breakup song and war lullaby in the same immortal chest. And Bubblegum matches her, but in a different register. PB lives a long time too, but her memory is bureaucratic. Early on, she literally manufactures the Candy Kingdom, creating citizens, laws, and power structures that will outlast any single romance. So when she and Marceline fall apart, it's not just personal, it's constitutional. The crown, the lab, the throne room, they all cast a shadow over the couch where they're supposed to just be two people watching movies. We're going to notice how Obsidian braids all of this into one continuous thread. Flashbacks to a younger, brittle PB, present-day domestic softness, future Glass Kingdom myths. It's one relationship acting like a bridge across eras. The universe keeps changing its rules. Their desire to stay connected has to evolve with it. And then, pattern interrupt. Somewhere at the center of time, in that cozy cosmic bachelor pad, Prismo might have Obsidian playing on one of his infinite screens, like it's his favorite rom-com episode. He can watch every timeline in the multiverse, but he lingers here, quietly rooting for them to finally talk it out, to wish, just once, for something that heals instead of shatters, before we drift further down Oo's long glowing timeline. The end of the main era, Golb, Gum War, and Oo's near unmaking so while Prismo's watching Obsidian like a cosmic comfort movie. Down in Ooo, that relationship work has a very real, very messy consequence. It means the next war is finally possible. The Gum War doesn't just pop out of nowhere as a late series spectacle. It's the bill coming due on centuries of quiet control, of Princess Bubblegum deciding that if she can build a kingdom from sugar, she can also engineer its future, its people, its enemies. Let's start with how small it looks at first. A border dispute, some angry teens, a candy kingdom that has always, very politely, wanted everyone else to do what PB says. But under that, you have the Fire Kingdom's old grudges, the Breakfast Kingdom's fear, the way the other rulers have watched the Candy Kingdom become this soft pastel superpower. Here is the thing. Ooo has always been silly on the surface and imperial underneath. The Gum War is that finally saying itself out loud. And right when history is about to resolve into a very normal, very mortal disaster, armies, tanks, candy mechs, the universe blinks and brings in something older. Golb. He isn't a villain in the usual sense. He is not angry. He is not even evil in the way the Lich is. He is just raw, corrosive, unmaking, a cosmic solvent that dissolves continuity, personality, and timeline all at once. Think about that for a second. This is not just a monster attack. This is reality threatening to forget that it ever happened. Golb doesn't invade like an army. He arrives like a glitch. Walls fold, skies bend. The Gum War, with all its political nuance, is instantly downgraded to background noise in the presence of a being who can remix existence into screaming fused abominations. Bodies merge, histories blur, and you get that horrible quiet implication that if he fully settles into Ooo, every choice anyone ever made might as well be deleted from the multiverse's hard drive. And yet, this is exactly where all those long tangled histories become the only real defense. Bubblegum and Marceline, with 1,000 years of hurt and healing. Ice King. No Simon, dragging the weight of the crown of Evergreen, of every frozen timeline he almost created. Finn and Jake, who have spent their whole lives accidentally rehearsing for this moment, learning that power without connection just makes louder mistakes. They don't form a perfect prophecy squad. They form something weirder, a cross-section of Oo's entire emotional timeline standing in one crater. What actually pushes back Golb is not a bigger beam or a better spell, it's music. It's Marceline's song, Simon's memory, the way voices in harmony briefly convince reality to hold its shape. In this video, we're going to keep returning to that pattern. In Ooo, the rules of power say destruction should win, but desire, love, and shared stories keep hacking the system. A lullaby becomes stronger than a cosmic shredder aimed at history itself. Golb leaves. Not defeated exactly, just uninterested in a universe that insists on knitting itself back together through connection. The Gum War collapses, not into rubble, but into reflection. Ooo doesn't end, it softens. Borders blur. Old rulers step back. Finn and Jake's era moves from present tense into legend. And somewhere at the center of time, Prismo watches the smoke clear and flips to the next episode, where new heroes, Shermie, Beth, and beyond, walk through a changed Ooo that still carries every scar, every song, every almost erased moment. After the storm, quiet years and invisible healing in Ooo. So the smoke clears, the last Gale B warped echoes drain out of the sky, and Ooo does something it hasn't done in a very long time. It stays quiet, not forever, not perfectly. This universe doesn't really do uneventful. But here is the thing. After a climax that bent reality inside out, the timeline slips into a long, low tide. Buildings are not just uncrumbled, they're redesigned with evacuation tunnels, emergency hot chocolate taps, and very official, no eldritch entities beyond this point, signs that absolutely no one enforces. Borders that were once drawn in laser fire and elemental blasts are now renegotiated over tea, treaties, and awkward potlucks, where Fire Kingdom diplomats learn not to sit on the candy furniture. We're going to drift with that, because these are the years that almost never get screen time. The Candy Kingdom quietly retools from a war machine back into a community. You can imagine PB commissioning fewer laser cannons and more parks, more schools, more weird little science co-ops, where young candy citizens debate ethics instead of artillery. Think about that for a second. This is the same ruler who once kept dossiers on everyone's threat level, now having to learn what it means to trust a population she literally created. Finn ages into that new reality. He's still a hero, but the power fantasy shifts. Less chosen, one more older cousin who knows where the safe paths are. In the gaps between crises, you can almost see him teaching younger adventurers how to read a dungeon the way you'd read a bedtime story. Here's the spike trap. Here's the secret kindness in the monster. Here's the part where you walk away instead of swinging your sword. Marceline, who has watched empires burn and regrow since before the Mushroom War cooled, finally gets to be domestically immortal. Not boring, just stable. Bands that stay together, friendships that don't dissolve in apocalypse. Relationships that don't have to be tested by the end of existence every 12 episodes. Most of this we never see directly. It's implied, like negative space around a drawing. You catch it in the way Obsidian shows a glass kingdom that has had time to form myths about earlier adventures, or how Shermie and Beth move through ruins that feel less like fresh scars and more like old, softened memories. The specials and future glimpses don't just jump, they assume a long, slow continuity of healing in between. And that matters. Quiet years are the connective tissue of any timeline. The long stretches where no wish is granted, no cosmic door slams, and yet everything important actually recalibrates. History is not just the Mushroom War and Golb and the center of time. It's also 100,000 afternoons where nothing explodes and someone decides, very gently, to forgive someone else. Eventually, the clock keeps doing what time always does. It walks forward. Generations roll over. Finn and Jake become stories told around campfires, then half-remembered legends, then background radiation in the collective imagination of Ooo. The surface of the world shifts again. Forests grow through old battlefields. Cities sink, new ones perch on their bones. From Prismo's multiverse vantage point, you can almost watch the camera pan away from our heroes, across a changed landscape, until it settles on two new figures, Shermie, Beth. New names in an old song, and the next verse is about to start. Shermie and Beth, Oo's distant future and the long shadow of heroes. Shermie and Beth stand in that silence after the song changes. Same world, new verse. The Land of Ooo is still there, but it wears a different face, like an old friend in a new outfit that doesn't quite hide the wrinkles. Let's start with how it looks. The hills are softer, slumped under centuries of erosion and weird magic. Candy structures have melted and fused into stone, so a cliff might have a faint jelly bean scene running through it, like the universe tried desert and geology at the same time. Towers that were once proud, like the Candy Kingdom's spires or some forgotten Fire Kingdom outpost, now lean sideways, half swallowed by trees that grew out of enchanted rubble. You can feel that kingdoms have merged, fallen, or just diffused, their borders dissolved into wandering communities and half-remembered flags. Here is the thing. Ooo has always been about cycles of rise and collapse. In Shermie and Beth's era, that's not a tragedy, it's just the background radiation of existence. You see weird hybrid architecture, like a stone temple with a candy corn frieze and a rusted pre-war satellite dish on top. And you realize the map we knew is gone. The Ice Kingdom isn't a neat northern crown anymore. It's scattered glaciers and relics. The Candy Kingdom's influence is everywhere and nowhere, reduced to ruins, stories, and the occasional marshmallow archway in the middle of nowhere. And moving through this changed reality, we get Shermie and Beth, a wiry little cat and a towering, cheerful mutant pup, framed very deliberately as spiritual echoes of Finn and Jake. Two silhouettes against the horizon, two friends whose default mode is adventure. They don't copy Finn and Jake's personalities, but the pattern is there. The duo dynamic, the wandering, the willingness to poke at the edges of the world just to see what falls out. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe keeps remixing the same basic desire to explore, to help, to get into trouble and then figure it out. But for them, Finn and Jake aren't history. They're myth. Statues, literally. You get that stone arm, that heroic pose, that sense that some ancient hero once stood where they're standing now. Think about that for a second. We watched Finn grow up, cry, fail, and get back up. And to Shermie and Beth, he's basically King Arthur, or some half-verified rumor your grandpa insists is true. Artifacts become the bridge. Finn's sword, passed down, lost, recovered, recontextualized, is a physical line drawn straight through the timeline. The grass sword, the root sword, the demon blood sword, all those blades and forms eventually condense into relics, museum pieces without museums. A kid in this era might swing Finn's sword without knowing the weight of every wish, every war, every cosmic mistake that brought it here. And yet, life goes on. This future Ooo isn't a wasteland. It's weirdly cozy, overgrown, patched together, full of small communities and new species. After the Mushroom War, the elemental catastrophes, the Lich, Golb, and every multiverse-level threat, the world didn't end. It just kept improvising. That's Oo's real power, resilience. The rules of who's in charge, what counts as a kingdom, even what people look like keep changing, but the core rhythm of existence, friendship, curiosity, danger, healing, stays. And then, pattern interrupt. We pull back again. Shermie and Beth freeze mid-step. The camera unhooks from their reality and drifts upward, past clouds, past atmosphere, into the abstract. Back to the center of time. Back to Prismo's couch. From his multiverse vantage point, Shermie and Beth's adventures play on one screen, Finn and Jake's on another, as if they're just different seasons of the same long-running show. He flips between them lazily, popcorn in hand, watching centuries collapse into channel surfing. To him, time is flat. To you, it's a lullaby of repeating shapes. And somewhere, a new episode is already loading. Together again, Finn and Jake's final adventure outside of time, and on one of those screens, the channel suddenly changes. The popcorn pauses in midair. Because now we're going to the one place that isn't exactly a place at all. The Dead Worlds, where Finn and Jake's story decides what it wants to be when it grows up. Let's start with the premise of Together Again, which is already quietly unhinged. Finn dies. That's just a sentence the show drops on you. He wakes up in the afterlife, older, scarred, still wired for heroism, and immediately treats the cosmic bureaucracy of death like it's another dungeon crawl. There are colored dead worlds stacked like a vertical multiverse of moods, each with its own rules, each a different answer to the question, what happens after you're done being alive? Think about that for a second. In Ooo, even the afterlife is world building. Finn's first desire is exactly what you'd expect. Find Jake. Fix it. Be a hero. Here is the thing. The special keeps rewarding that instinct just long enough to show you its limits. He punches through peaceful heavens, argues with death deities, and rides literal soul elevators, all to track down a dog who, from Finn's perspective, has been gone for ages. From Jake's perspective, though, time is loose. He's already been through his own cycles, already chilled out into this almost Buddha dog state, lounging in a perfect dead world where every wish is just being As they climb and fall through those stacked realms, the vertical depth of Oo's timeline finally snaps into focus. We've gone from prehistoric elementals, to mushroom war fallout, to Candy Kingdom politics, to Shermie and Beth's far future. But Together Again says the timeline doesn't stop at death, it just rotates 90 degrees. Life to death, death to reincarnation, reincarnation to something else. Souls get choices. Stay. Recycle. Let go. The universe of Adventure Time quietly admits that existence is not a straight line. It's a cosmic elevator you can step off whenever you're ready. The emotional core lands when Finn and Jake decide, together, that they are ready. Not for one more quest, not for one more wish, for whatever comes next. No swords, no stretchy powers, no lich to punch, just two souls agreeing that endless adventure is, in its own way, another cage. They choose reincarnation not as a reset button, but as an act of trust in the timeline itself. They let go of being heroes and accept being participants. From Prismo's time room at the center of time, this doesn't read as tragedy. It's a scene change. Another episode ending on one screen, while a pilot quietly begins on another. He's seen Finn and Jake as kids, as legends, as dead, as reborn. To him, their acceptance is the healthiest version of power there is, the power to stop, to not wish, to let reality breathe. And yet, as their souls drift off screen, the rest of Oo's timeline keeps stretching forward and backward, branching and looping, while Prismo lounges in his eternal bachelor pad, watching, waiting, and every so often nudging the universe with one more carefully literal wish. Prismo's loneliness, watching infinite Ooh without ever visiting so. While Ooh keeps unfolding, comets falling, Prismo is just there, in his cosmic bachelor pad at the center of time, lying on that beanbag like it's a job description. The screens hum, the multiverse glows. Somewhere, a Shermie and a Beth are climbing a ruined Finn sword. But in the time room, it's another quiet day on an infinite shift. Here is the thing. Prismo's daily existence is almost aggressively mundane for a being who can rewrite reality. He wakes up without waking up, because he is already awake as long as the old man dreams. He flips through timelines like channels, rewatching favorite arcs, the mushroom war blooming into pastel magic, Simon finding the crown, Bubblegum assembling the Candy Kingdom citizen, by citizen like she's binge-building a civilization. He makes pickles, he makes nachos. He waits for the door to buzz with someone desperate enough to make a wish. He can collapse a universe into a single corrected sentence, but he cannot walk 5 steps outside that glowing frame on the floor. He can see every timeline branching from the first elemental flicker to the distant futures where Ooh is almost unrecognizable, but he cannot choose a single one to live in. He is not evil. He is not even indifferent. He is just bound by rules older than he is and by the soft mortal brain that is dreaming him into existence. So he copes. That's what this is. Coping on a cosmic scale. He rewinds Finn and Jake's era like a comfort show, looping their dumb jokes and near deaths because at least those are familiar. He roots for Simon every time, even though he knows exactly how the crown will hollow him out. He pauses on tiny, quiet moments. Marceline napping on the couch. BMO dancing alone. Like you might pause on a favorite frame in a movie, just to feel something that isn't obligation. Think about that for a second. The Wishmaster of the multiverse is basically re-watching Ooh the way you re-watch your favorite series when you can't sleep. You in your room, screen glowing in the dark. Him in his time room, surrounded by 1,000 screens showing 1,000 possible futures. Both of you using other people's timelines to make your own existence feel less empty for a while. And we're going to be honest, he needs visitors. Every buzzer ring is an event. Someone from reality has punched through the cosmic bureaucracy to stand in his living room and talk to him. He jokes, he flirts, he stretches the conversation before the wish, because once the wish is spoken clearly, the interaction is already ending. But in that specifically Adventure Time way, the loneliness cuts deepest when the power is most obvious. Because all of this, the room, the screens, the snacks, Prismo himself, hangs on one fragile biological process in some forgotten corner of reality, an old man sleeping. And there are moments, rare but real, when the dreamer stirs, when the monitors flicker, when Prismo feels his outline fray at the edges? What happens to a cosmic wishmaster when the dream that sustains him starts to wake up? When the dreamer wakes, Prismo's death, rebirth, and ontological terror. So the dreamer stirs. The monitors in the time room don't just flicker, they shudder, like the multiverse is buffering. Prismo's outline jitters, his voice thins out, and somewhere in a boring little corner of reality with no wizards and no candy people, an old man opens his eyes. And because Prismo is not a metaphor but a literal dream, when the eyelids go up, the Wishmaster goes out. Let's start with the violence of how quiet it is. There's no explosion, no cosmic alarm. The center of time, just hiccups. The beanbags, the movies, the pickle jar, all of it desaturates as the time room loses power like a dying screen. Prismo stretches toward Jake, toward the console, toward continuity itself, and then he dissolves into static. One moment, a cosmic couch potato with access to every timeline. The next, nothing. Every universe just lost its favorite background process. Here is the thing. Prismo isn't just a guy who grants your wish. He's an interpreter, a translator between raw desire and structured reality. When he dies, you don't just lose a character, you lose the stabilizing force that quietly makes sure the multiverse's paperwork gets filed. Pending wishes hang, branching timelines wobble. Farm World, the Lich's extinction wish, all those carefully managed divergences suddenly don't have their cosmic project manager on duty. Think about that for a second. All of Oo's errors, prehistoric elementals, the Mushroom War, Finn and Jake's road trips, Shermie and Beth poking around in the distant future, have been running under the assumption that someone at the center of time is watching the screens, making sure reality's rules are followed. And then, for a brief and terrifying interval, there is no one. The show doesn't pause. Existence just keeps going, slightly unobserved. We're going to glide past the intricate mechanics of his resurrection, but only in the way you glide past a sleeping dragon, through convoluted cosmic loopholes, time clones, and carefully staged causality. Prismo is rebooted from a saved instance of himself, a backup dream. The old man goes back to sleep. The dream reforms. The time room reboots, like a cosmic operating system after a forced shutdown. It's absurd. It's meticulous. It's continuity. And that's where the ontological terror creeps in that specifically Adventure Time way. If a dream can die and then return with its memories, if a Wishmaster is just a recurring sleep pattern in some anonymous brain, what does that say about Oo's timeline? Are the Mushroom War, the rise of the Candy Kingdom, Simon and Marcy wandering through nuclear snow, just stories playing on the inside of someone's eyelids? If your universe is someone else's REM cycle, does that make you less real? Pattern interrupt. It doesn't actually matter. Not to you, lying there, listening. Not to Finn and Jake, chasing liches and hugging it out. Not to Prismo, who finds genuine comfort in watching Oo's history unfold on his infinite screens, snack in hand. Real or not, dream or not, these timelines still carry feeling. They still soothe us. And as long as the old man keeps sleeping, and the dream keeps watching, the story keeps going. Cosmic bureaucrats and broken worlds. Prismo, death, and Golb compared. And while the dream keeps watching, there are other eyes on Ooh. Other officers in the cosmic high-rise. If Prismo is the chill night manager at the center of time, there are two other forces on adjacent, very unsettling floors. Death and Golb. Let's start with Prismo, because you already know his vibe. He's the Wish Administrator. The multiverse's overworked, under-supervised clerk of desire. One wish per person, per lifetime, clearly spoken, filed and stamped so the timeline doesn't collapse into pure nonsense. He doesn't just fling power around. He interprets. He listens for what you actually said, not what you meant, and then rewrites reality in the most legible way possible. Here is the thing. He's not making chaos. He's making paperwork. Every wish is a form. Every altered universe, a neatly labeled folder on his infinite screens. Death, by contrast, is the soul accountant. He lives in that bleak, bureaucratic, dead world, riding his skeletal horse through endless ledgers of existence. Every life in Ooo is a line item. Every deal, like the one he strikes with Peppermint Butler, is a contract with precise, terrifying rules. He doesn't hate you, he doesn't love you. He just balances the books between the Land of Ooo and the Dead Worlds, making sure souls flow where they're supposed to go and that nobody, not even Finn and Jake, skips out on the bill forever. Think about that for a second. In a universe full of candy people and singing demons, the most reliable force might be a tired skeleton doing eternal accounting. And then there is Golb. Golb is not management. Golb is entropy incarnate. When Golb appears over Ooo, reality doesn't get reorganized. It unravels. Structures melt, minds fracture. Continuity itself starts to scream. This is not a clerk or a judge. This is the glitch in the operating system, the raw cosmic corrosion that threatens the very continuity Prismo and Death rely on to do their jobs. You can't file a wish with Golb. You can't negotiate a contract. You can only survive, or not. We're going to see these forces intersect again and again across Oo's timeline. The Lich uses Prismo to wish for the extinction of all life, a wish that should have been Death's ultimate payday, but instead spirals into Farmworld, a whole alternate universe that has to be tracked, taxed, and maintained. Death's realm is constantly nudged by Prismo's interventions. Characters die, come back, or slide between timelines, forcing the Soul Accountant to update his ledgers in that specifically Adventure Time way where bureaucracy becomes metaphysics. And whenever Golb shows up, at the fall of Mars, in the chaos that nearly erases Ooo during Come Along With Me, the entire system trembles. Prismo's files burn. Death's ledgers become meaningless. If GoLB wins, there is no center of time, no dead worlds, no continuity to argue about at all. Yet Ooo persists. Through wishes gone wrong, deaths averted or embraced, and Golb-level near resets, the timeline keeps reassembling around friendships, promises, tiny acts of courage. The real anchor isn't Prismo's time room, or Death's hierarchy, or even Golb's shadow. It's Finn holding out his hand. It's Simon choosing, again, to care. And as we move forward through Oo's history, you'll see that those small, stubborn relationships do what no cosmic entity can. They keep the story going. Emotional cartography. Mapping Oo's history by feelings, not dates, so if friendships and tiny promises are the real anchors, then the timeline of Ooo is not just a line of events at all. It's more like a weather map of feelings, drifting across the universe, changing color as time moves on. Here is the thing. Dates in Ooo are fuzzy, but moods are precise. You can feel when you're in the post-war grief era, even if you cannot pin it to a calendar. That's Simon and Marcy wandering through the ruins, the sky still choked with the Mushroom War's fallout, Simon's mind fraying every time he puts on the crown. It's not year 5 after the bombs. It's the season of hanging on, of holding a little girl's hand while your own existence unravels. Let's start there, in grief. The world is broken, magic is leaking back into reality, and the old rules of civilization have burned away. Simon's tapes to Marcy, the way he sings to her while he forgets himself, sit right next to Evergreen's ancient failure with the crown, as if the multiverse keeps replaying the same sad chord. Different timeline, same emotional key. Then, slowly, that grief mutates into experimental rebuilding. Princess Bubblegum literally cooks citizens in a lab and calls it a kingdom. There is anxious control in every candy brick. She smiles, but she also installs surveillance, contingency plans, backup bodies. Think about that for a second. A ruler who can regrow herself from bubblegum hoarding power not out of cartoon villainy, but out of sheer terror that reality will collapse again, if she relaxes. This whole era feels like a science project crossed with a panic attack. Finn and Jake's early adventures open the next emotional zone. Playful exploration. The same wasteland that once held Simon and Marcy's hunger now hosts quests about hot dog nights and dungeon trains. The danger is still real. But the mood? It's a kid sprinting through the ruins of history, using heroism as a game controller. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the universe starts to laugh with them, just a little. And then the tone tilts. Elemental Ooo and the Gale LB confrontation drag us into existential crisis. The 4 elementals snap the world back into raw candy, ice, fire, and slime, like the universe is rebooting to factory settings. Golb arrives as pure unmaking, a cosmic error message given teeth. Identities blur, bodies melt. Simon fights to exist without the crown. This is the era where the timeline itself feels like it could be deleted mid-sentence. Far past that, with Shermie and Beth, we reach gentle acceptance. The sword is different, the tree is older, Finn and Jake are legends now, half-remembered glitches in local folklore. There's wistful nostalgia in every shot. The universe is still weird, still dangerous, but the panic has cooled into curiosity. From the center of time, Prismo doesn't just favorite moments by plot importance, he favorites by feeling. He replays Simon sacrificing his sanity, Marceline forgiving him, Finn choosing compassion over revenge, quiet scenes of PB and Marcy on the balcony, not because destruction lacks power, but because connection bends the multiverse in a way raw annihilation never can. So as you listen, which emotional era do you drift toward? The grief, the rebuilding, the play, the crisis, or that far-off acceptance? Your answer changes how Oo's timeline feels, and what you think the universe is really about. And once we've mapped Ooh by feeling like this, we can go back to the time room one last time and ask a different question. If Prismo keeps rewatching these moods over and over, what secret wish is he quietly making for himself? And for you, Prismo as a mirror, what Oo's timeline reflects about us. Here is the thing. When Prismo keeps rewinding Ooh, he isn't doing cosmic homework. He's doing what you do when you rewatch the same show or replay the same memory in the dark. He's looking for a feeling, for a pattern that makes existence make sense for a second. Think about that for a second. The being at the center of time, with the whole multiverse on demand, is basically binge-watching one timeline the way you fall asleep to the same 3 episodes. Let's start with that wall of screens. On one, the post-Mushroom War chaos, feral and glowing, like a childhood where the rules haven't fully loaded yet. Things mutate, magic leaks in. The 4 elementals are there under the surface, the way your early fears and comforts are there under every later decision. It's loud, confusing, a little scary, but also full of possibility. That is Oo's childhood, and in that specifically Adventure Time way, it is both horrifying and kind of beautiful. Then Prismo flicks forward. Princess Bubblegum is literally building the Candy Kingdom out of her own body, experimenting with power, relationships, ethics, the way a teenager experiments with identity. She makes citizens, then laws, then mistakes. This is Oo's adolescence, all trial phases and wild prototypes. We're going to pretend this is just a fantasy kingdom, but you can feel the echo of your first attempts at being a person who decides things and lives with the consequences. Finn and Jake's era is the adventurous young adulthood of the timeline. Quests, dungeons, breakups, that one perfect sandwich Jake makes and guards like a holy relic of comfort. Big cosmic threats, sure, but also naps, games, and road trips on a stretchy dog. If you could watch your own life like Prismo watches Ooh, which moments would you replay from that phase? The boss fights or the quiet mornings on the couch? Midway through, the elementals flare back up, Golb arrives, and the whole universe has what is essentially a midlife crisis. The rules of reality feel unstable. Old patterns return in weirder, harsher forms. People question who they've become. It's the same timeline, but it doesn't recognize itself in the mirror. Then, far in the distance, Shermie and Beth wander the softened ruins, and, together again, gives Finn and Jake a kind of after-afterlife epilogue. These are Oo's reflective later years, slower, stranger, but full of acceptance. So here is the quiet question under all of Prismo's rewatching. If you had his power for one night and could scrub through your own timeline, what would you wish to change, and what tiny comforts would you protect exactly as they were? Which heartbreak would you soften, and which ridiculous, mundane joy, a sandwich, a joke, a song in the car, would you defend like a sacred relic of your personal universe? Because our lives, like Ooh, are made of both. Cosmic scale fears, mundane comforts, apocalypses and laundry, they coexist in the same frame, and the camera keeps cutting between them until they feel like one continuous story. Pattern interrupt, pull back from Ooh entirely, Imagine Earth at night, city grids glowing like Prismo's screens. In one window, someone is falling asleep to this video. In another, someone is replaying a first kiss, or a hospital room, or a joke they told at lunch. Millions of private timelines all running at once, all equally real. And somewhere, outside of all of them, the universe keeps turning very quietly, waiting for your next wish. Slow recap, walking back through Oo's ages like a dream you just had. So now, while those city lights on Prismo's screens are still glowing in your mind, let's start walking back through Oo's whole existence, like you're rewinding a dream, not analyzing it, just drifting through it. We're going to take the chaos of the timeline and lay it out in one long, slow breath. First, way before the Mushroom War, before Finn, before even Simon, there's that ancient, almost mythological era. The elementals are already there. Candy, ice, fire, slime. Like 4 fundamental moods the universe woke up in. Earth is still normal in human terms. Cars, offices, rent. But underneath, in that specifically Adventure Time way, there are primordial crowns and cosmic artifacts waiting. Evergreen shows us an older ice crown, built as a desperate wish for protection that accidentally bakes madness into the hardware. Here is the thing. Reality is already fragile long before the bombs ever fall. Then the war hits. The Mushroom War blooms across the planet. A nuclear wish for total victory, granted in the worst way possible. Cities vanish. Oceans change. The sky gets weird. Simon Petrikov stumbles through this collapsing reality with a crown that gives him power and takes his mind, protecting little Marcy in ruined malls and empty parking lots. Think about that for a second. The first age of Ooo is just a scared kid and a doomed scientist walking through the end of the world. Magic and mutation seep in through the cracks left by radiation, and in the rubble, the earliest shapes of future kingdoms begin to collect. Stray candy people, weird slimes, pockets of fire. Centuries slide by, and the ruins congeal into kingdoms. Princess Bubblegum literally builds the Candy Kingdom, making citizens out of sugar and science, ruler and creator in one lab coat. The Fire Kingdom, the Slime Domains, the Ice Kingdom around the corrupted crown. Each is a mood of the planet, given borders and tax policy. Ice King is what's left of Simon, orbiting the edges of everyone else's reality. Finn and Jake grow up inside this patchwork, and their adventures double as archaeology. Every dungeon crawl is a tour through pre-war tech. Every cursed sword is a leftover from some forgotten wish for power. The elementals wake, clash, reset the board. Golb appears like a cosmic delete button, reminding everyone that the timeline itself can be unmade. And outside all that, the multiverse keeps branching. Prismo's time room sits at the center of time, watching Farmworld spin off from a single, badly phrased wish, watching Shermie and Beth poke around a far future Ooo that has grown past Finn and Jake but not past consequence. We see dead characters in layered afterlives, proving the story doesn't stop when bodies do. Existence just changes channels. Through all of it, Prismo is our quiet constant, a lonely dream with cosmic responsibilities, flipping through these ages like you're flipping through this video, granting wishes he can't refuse, and watching timelines rise, fall, and loop, while he stays exactly where he is. Returning to the time room, one last look at Oo's thread of light. So let's start by going back to the center of time. You're in the time room again. Dim, amber light. The quiet hum of infinite screens, turned down low like a universe on sleep load. Prismo is half reclined on his cosmic couch, two-dimensional and perfectly relaxed, watching Oo's entire history not as episodes, not as chaos, but as a single looping, glowing ribbon drifting through the air. Here is the thing. From this angle, the multiverse doesn't look complicated. It looks tidy, almost gentle. The ribbon hangs in the dark like a slow comet, and as it turns, you can see time changing color. At one end, ancient blues and whites, cool and deep, where the elementals first anchor reality. Candy, ice, fire, slime. Those early, prehistoric currents of power flicker like the episode Evergreen, stretched out into pure abstraction. Then the colors fracture. Harsh reds, metallic oranges, poisoned grays. That is the Mushroom War, blooming and collapsing in a silent, radioactive flower. You can almost see Simon, tiny and terrified, putting on the ice crown for the first time, a pale blue filament threading through all that red like a vein of frost in hot ash. Think about that for a second. One frightened archaeologist, one wish-adjacent artifact, changing the temperature of an entire timeline. The ribbon drifts, and the palette flips. Bright candy colors snap on like someone turned up the saturation. Pinks and yellows and bubblegum neons, where Princess Bubblegum literally builds the Candy Kingdom out of her own desire for order and companionship. Finn and Jake's era runs here. Heroic oranges, sky blues, goofy little bursts of green whenever they derail destiny with a hug or a sword swing. Their adventures sparkle along the thread like beads, small but impossibly vivid. Farther along, the tones soften again. Shermie and Beth's distant future glows in dusty golds and mossy greens. Ooo, half ruin and half garden, proving the world keeps going long after our main characters exit the screen. Other futures, other branches, farm world and beyond, show up as faint side filaments, but from Prismo's couch they don't feel like separate stories. They feel like riffs on a melody. We're going to linger on that, because from this vantage point, continuity wins. Yes, there are branches. Yes, there are alternate timelines, dead universes, wishes that fracture reality into weird little cul-de-sacs. But the ribbon never actually stops. It kinks. It loops. It doubles back. It does not break. Ooo is a world that refused to stay dead, that kept recomposing itself out of nuclear ash, candy science, and sheer narrative stubbornness. And as you drift towards sleep, you can imagine your own life as a smaller ribbon floating nearby. Sharp turns where everything changed in a day. Long, soft stretches where time blurred. Regrets as darker threads. Joys as sudden bright flares. Still one continuous line. Still you. Prismo watches all of this, eyes half-lidded, like he's re-watching a favorite movie for the 1000th time. He knows there are countless untold eras of Ooo in other timelines, other wishes, other late-night experiments in existence. But in this video, we've seen enough for tonight. The rest can wait for another dream, another visit to the time room when you're ready to wake up or fall asleep to the next version of the story. Soft landing. Why Oo's broken, healing timeline feels so comforting, and that's the quiet magic of it. You've just drifted across an entire timeline where the universe exploded, reassembled, nuked itself, sprouted candy people, and still somehow ended up with a boy, a dog, and a really good sandwich. Here is the thing. Ooo is comforting because it never lies about being broken. The sky is wrong, the oceans are wrong, the history is scorched. And yet, in that specifically Adventure Time way, there's always a joke, always a song, always someone making soup in the background, while reality unravels in the foreground. You watch Simon wander through nuclear winter with a crown that eats his mind. And then you cut to Marceline and him sharing soup on a busted couch. You see Princess Bubblegum literally build a kingdom out of sugar and anxiety, and then spend an afternoon fixing a candy citizen's minor existential crisis like it's just another Tuesday. The contrast is the comfort. Not peace instead of catastrophe, but warmth layered directly on top of it, like someone putting a quilt over a crater. And when you know the full timeline, from prehistoric elementals to the Mushroom War, to Finn and Jake's era, to Shermie and Beth poking around in the ruins, you're going to feel your shoulders drop a little, because the chaos doesn't stay chaos forever. It mutates. It cools. It becomes new rules, new kingdoms, new weird forms of stability. The world ends, and then the world continues. Different, yes. Mutated, absolutely, but still recognizably a world where you can hang out, make friends, and argue about sandwiches. Think about that for a second. Simon is shattered by the crown, but he keeps trying to care even when Simon is mostly a rumor inside the Ice King. Marceline carries millennia of abandonment and still shows up for band practice. PB is a control freak demigod who keeps building, keeps learning to trust. Finn and Jake die, but their influence echoes forward into Shermie and Beth. Even Prismo, trapped at the center of time, finds meaning in being a good host, a good friend, a good listener with cosmic cable. Falling asleep to this timeline is like running a quiet simulation in the back of your brain. What if everything goes wrong? And then, eventually, it's okay again. Not perfect, not reset, just okay. On the scale of your day, your life, your planet. The show gently rehearses the idea that loss, mutation, and disaster don't end the story. They just move it to a weirder, often softer chapter. So as you drift, the Land of Ooo becomes a kind of bedtime wish. Not for power, not for a flawless universe, but for a future where something survives, and that something still knows how to laugh. And of course, there are mysteries we haven't touched yet. The old cosmic beings before the war, the full origin of the elementals, the stranger corners of the multiverse Prismo scrolls past and never explains. They're still out there in the dark, waiting. Not urgently, just patiently, on pause, until the next night you want to press play on this timeline again. Gentle outro. If you're still awake, you're part of the time room now. So if you're still here, somehow still awake, you've just done something quietly ridiculous. You have drifted through prehistoric elementals, the Mushroom War, Finn and Jake's whole era, distant Shermie and Beth futures, and entire branches of the multiverse, without even leaving your bed. Think about that for a second. You have been hovering at the center of time with Prismo, watching universes spool out like film, and your body has just been lying there, breathing. Here is the thing. If your eyes are open, or half open, or just vaguely pointed in the direction of the screen, you are part of the time room now. You and Prismo, and this long, sleepy timeline of Ooo, all in one quiet little triangle of existence. And if you've already drifted off and you're only hearing this in fragments, that still counts. Dreams are valid here. Prismo would back me up on that. We're going to end very gently. No big spike in energy, no sudden reality check, just a soft, low-pressure wish. If you want more long, calm lore journeys like this, tapping like or subscribe is basically sending a memo to the algorithm, another cosmic bureaucrat with too much power and not enough context, that this is the kind of timeline you desire. Not action figure unboxing, not loud rage commentary, just quiet chronological nonsense about a candy apocalypse and a lonely wishmaster. You don't have to, obviously. You are not under ancient multiversal contract. You are not making a binding wish. You are just nudging the universe a little, the way Prismo nudges reality when someone finally says exactly what they want, out loud. If you're hovering in that in-between space, not quite asleep, not quite awake, this is also a good moment to queue up another video. Maybe a deep dive on Simon and the Ice Crown, tracing his timeline from harmless antiquarian to tragic ice wizard to exhausted human again. Or a slow walk through Princess Bubblegum's entire reign, from pink primordial goo to hyper-competent ruler who literally built her own citizens. Or even Prismo himself, zoomed in, every wish, every rule, every lonely movie night in the time room. Set 1 to autoplay, and let your night turn into a little marathon through Ooo while you slip under. In this video, we've only shared one long ribbon of light together, one tour across this particular universe's history. Thank you for spending this stretch of time here, in our improvised time room, just watching timelines and quietly talking about how they feel. That is all we've been doing, really. Not solving anything, just witnessing. So now the screens can dim. The noise of the multiverse fades to a soft electrical hum. Oo's ribbon of light is still there, still glowing faintly at the edge of your awareness, but it doesn't need your attention anymore. Prismo leans back into his cosmic couch, folds his hands behind his head, and settles in for another long, quiet watch. Somewhere, an old man keeps dreaming. Somewhere, you keep breathing. And as you drift away, the center of time holds, patient and unhurried, until the next night you decide to press play again. Bonus drift. If sleep hasn't found you yet, let's linger in prehistoric Ooo, and if, somehow, your mind is still faintly buzzing while the center of time leans back and goes quiet, we can do one more drift. A bonus lap. Not forward this time, but backward, way past Prismo's screens, past Finn and Jake, past the Mushroom War itself, into an era so slow that even your thoughts have to whisper to keep up. Let's start above an ancient Earth that doesn't know its Ooo yet. From high up, it's just a dark marble wrapped in soft clouds, calm oceans breathing against untouched coasts, deep forests exhaling mist in the early light. No candy people, no wizards, no kingdoms, just a planet minding its own business. Here is the thing. In this moment, the universe is not asking anything of you. It's not asking anything of anyone. Down in the mountains, the elementals are asleep. Not metaphorically. In that specifically Adventure Time way, they are literally embedded in reality. The ice elemental is pressed into glaciers like a dream caught in frozen glass. The candy elemental is scattered as strange, sweet minerals crystallizing in the dark, veins of future gumdrops and lollipops that have no names yet. Fire hums in molten rivers beneath the crust, a patient glowing heartbeat. Slime waits in low basins, green and gold and silent, the ancestor of every future bog and ooze and sentient goo. Nothing is in a hurry. Tectonic plates inch along, continents drifting like they've got all the time in existence, because they do. Ice sheets don't rush to form. They simply allow water to become still enough, cold enough, until it forgets how to move. Candy-like crystals grow one invisible layer at a time, following rules of chemistry and magic that no one has discovered yet. Think about that for a second. The future Candy Kingdom is technically speedrunning toward reality, and it still takes millions of years. We're going to match that pace for a moment. As an ice sheet thickens in your mind, let your inhale lengthen. Slow, cool air in. As it very gently carves into the sea, let your exhale follow it out. Long, soft air out. Again, oceans slide against continents. Your ribs expand and fall. A mountain range rises grain by grain. Your shoulders lift and release. Somewhere far below, fire veins pulse under the crust. And maybe that's just your heartbeat, steady and unbothered. There is no war assembling on the horizon. No wish being spoken at the center of time. No prophecy loading in the background. The multiverse is not waiting on you to decide anything. You are not late. You are not early. You are simply here, in a timeline where the only job is to exist at the speed of glaciers. Pattern interrupt. Imagine a single leaf. It falls, and never hits the ground. The image just dissolves. The forest blurs. The mountains fade. The oceans darken into one smooth, endless surface, and we follow a point of light down, down, like a camera sinking beneath a perfectly calm, ancient sea. Colors drain into deeper blue, then into nothing. No pressure, no sound, just a slow, widening quiet, as if the whole universe has finished its inhale and is finally, mercifully letting go. Bonus Drift 2, wandering the post-war ruins, one last, quiet time. Out of that deep, blank quiet, the universe exhales again. And when your eyes refocus in your mind, you're not underwater anymore. You're standing at the edge of a single ruined street, as if the camera of your attention has drifted down through centuries and just stopped here. Let's start with the pavement. It was once smooth, planned, part of a human city that believed in morning commutes and movie nights and long-term leases. Now it's cracked in slow, patient spiderwebs, each fracture filled with dirt and tiny, brave plants. Ivy has claimed the old storefronts, crawling up brick and broken glass with the calm confidence of something that has all the time in the world. Faded posters cling to a theater wall, advertising pre-war movies no one remembers, their colors bleached into pastel ghosts that flutter in a gentle, indifferent breeze. Here is the thing. Nothing is happening. Not really. And that is exactly what we're going to pay attention to. A single paper cup rolls along the curb, taps against a fallen street sign, and then rests. Paint peels in long curls from a door that will never open again. Somewhere, far off, a loose metal panel knocks softly, like a heartbeat that forgot it was supposed to be urgent. At the far end of the street, very small and very distant, Simon and Marceline move through the frame. They are background now, not the center of time, not the main characters of this moment. You can barely hear them. Just a murmur. A question from Marcy, a tired, gentle answer from Simon. Their outlines waver slightly in the heat, like the universe is already remembering them as a story it once told. Listen instead to the small sounds, the slow, careful crunch of glass under Simon's boots, each step spaced out, as if time itself is pausing between them. The distant call of a mutated bird perched on a rusted traffic light, its voice warped, yet still trying to be a song. From a half-flooded basement below you, there's the soft, rhythmic slosh of water nudging against old furniture, like a quiet tide trapped in a forgotten room. Think about that for a second. This sad, empty street is not the end of reality. It's compost. It's the soil from which Ooo will grow, in that specifically Adventure Time way, where nuclear fallout and ancient magic and human mistakes all decompose into something bright and strange, and somehow kind. The Mushroom War scraped the universe raw, but what's left behind is fertile with possibility, with future desire, with future laughter. Someday, far above these ruins, the Candy Kingdom will glitter like a hallucination built on bedrock grief. Someday, the timelines will branch and knot and dance, and someone like Prismo will watch them all from his cozy prison. And someday, on this same ground, a boy and his dog will tramp through the grass and the candy rubble, laughing like the world has never ended at all. But not yet. For now, it's okay to just be here, in the quiet, while the universe rests between wishes. Bonus Drift 3, a night in the Candy Kingdom, long after lights out. So we stay in that quiet for a moment, and when we open our eyes again, we're not in the ruins anymore. We're in the Candy Kingdom long after lights out, at an hour that barely belongs to anyone. The sky is a deep sugared violet, the moon hanging over the gumdrop skyline like a lazy jawbreaker someone forgot to finish. The streets are empty, not abandoned, not desolate, just done for the day. Streetlights glow with that soft, frosting yellow warmth, humming at a pitch you can almost hear if you lean into the silence. A gumdrop guard nods off against a lamppost, spear tilted, helmet sliding slowly down over his eyes. Another tries to look alert, blinking in sequence with the light, losing the battle one slow head bob at a time. Here is the thing. This is what safety looks like in Ooo, eventually. Guards who can afford to be sleepy. Let's start in the castle courtyard. The great candy fountain is off, but a thin line of syrup still threads down the marble, catching moonlight in a way that makes it look like liquid time. A stray balloon from some earlier celebration has deflated halfway and leans against a bench, quietly surrendering to gravity. Somewhere above, in the honeycomb of windows, a marshmallow citizen turns over in bed, the blanket puffing up, then settling like a tiny wave in a very small universe. We're going to drift out to the marketplace next. Stalls are closed, awnings tied down, jars of rock candy covered with neat little cloths, as if the sweets themselves need to sleep. A single peppermint wrapper skates along the cobblestones on a faint breeze, doing one slow spiral before lying still. From far off, you can hear the last echoes of Princess Bubblegum's labs winding down. A machine cycling off with a sigh, a coil cooling, a distant clink of glass. Not an alarm, not an explosion, just the sound of a mind that finally has the luxury to tinker instead of triage. Near the edge of the kingdom, the Gumball Guardians stand perfectly still, eyes dimmed to a resting glow. They are enormous, cosmic marbles planted at the border between candy reality and everything else. They could vaporize an intruder in an instant. Right now, a firefly blinks on and off near one of their stone cheeks, completely unconcerned with power or protocol. Think about that for a second. The guardians of an entire kingdom, and the only motion around them is a bug doing its tiny light show. Somewhere deep in the castle, PB is awake, not hunched over a crisis, not rewriting the rules of existence to stop some imminent annihilation. She's in a lab with only a few lights on, coat draped over a chair, hair a little undone, adjusting a lens on a harmless experiment that might never matter to any timeline but still delights her. This is the version of her that only exists when the multiverse isn't on fire. And then, pattern interrupt. We leave. The mental camera lifts, rising above the gumdrop towers, past the moon, through the thin blue shell of Oo's sky. Stars spread out, cool and indifferent, constellations we never learnt the names of. Higher still, beyond where any candy telescope can see, the time room hangs at the center of time, a quiet orange glow in the dark. Inside, Prismo is having his own slow night, screens dimmed, wishes paused, watching this sleeping kingdom on one of infinitely many channels, while the universe itself rests between desires. Bonus Drift IV. A quiet afternoon with Shermie and Beth in future Ooo. And while that orange glow hums at the center of time, the channel quietly shifts. We're going to drift forward past every crisis you know, into an afternoon that doesn't need saving. Let's start on a hill. Not a dramatic prophecy hill, just a soft, lumpy rise where the grass has grown thick over the bones of old reality. Shermy is lying on his back, hands pillowed behind his head, staring up at a sky that's bluer than Ooo usually lets itself be. Next to him, Beth leans against a half-buried archway, her armor a quiet mosaic of old worlds, creaking gently every time she breathes. Below them, the landscape is changed but recognizable, like Ooo put through a gentle filter. Candy Kingdom towers are long collapsed, but their melted shapes have become flower beds, with sugar glass petals catching the light. In the distance, what used to be the Ice Kingdom is just a ring of reflective lakes, stitched together by little wooden bridges someone built without needing a prophecy to tell them to. Think about that for a second. All those elemental wars, and the future looks like a park. Shermy squints at a distant statue, half swallowed by vines. So, that's the dog, right? He mumbles. From the legend, the stretchy one. He says it the way you might mention a character from a bedtime story you half remember from being 5. Beth's tail flicks, her metal plates whispering against each other. Nah, that's the boy, she says. Jake was the sword, or the hat, or the boat. Depends on who's telling it. Here is the thing. In their mouths, Finn and Jake are already myth, already out of focus, their timeline smoothed into a single shimmering story about a boy and his something. His dog, his brother, his wish to be brave when the universe got weird. Around them, the wildlife has moved on too. Little three-eyed birds hop between candy-rooted shrubs, chirping in a scale that never quite resolves. A slow, translucent deer drifts by, hooves not quite touching the ground, leaving tiny spirals of light that fade before you can decide if they were ever really there. Wind moves through hybrid trees, half oak, half licorice, making a sound like pages turning in a very patient book. There is no monster cresting the hill, no lich, no comet, no cosmic power testing the rules of existence. Just Shermy shifting his weight, Beth's armor answering with a soft domestic creak, and time stretching out like a lazy cat in the sun. In that specifically Adventure Time way, the multiverse is still out there, still wild, but this little corner has politely declined to participate today. Do you think they were real? Shermy asks, not urgently, just curious in the way you might be about dragons, or Prismo, or the center of time itself. Beth shrugs, plates clinking. Doesn't matter, she says. We got the afternoon anyway. And that is its own quiet revelation. Ooo has had its wars and its heroes, its wishes and its extinctions. Now it has afternoons like this. No prophecy, no crisis, just existence continuing at a gentle pace. And that, all by itself, is a kind of happy ending the timeline had to grow into. Final descent, letting Oo's timeline fade into background noise. Afternoons like that don't last. They dissolve. They always do. And here is the thing. You don't have to chase them through the timeline anymore. We've walked from prehistoric elementals to Beth and Shermy's lazy quests, from the Mushroom War's blinding flash to quiet plates clinking in a future that barely remembers why the sky looked cracked. Think about that for a second. You have been holding Simon, PB, Finn, Jake, Prismo, the Lich, the whole multiverse of Ooo in your head like a constellation drawn in neon string. That's a lot to keep lit. You don't need to do that now. So let's start letting it all blur. Names first. Faces next. Simon with his crown, PB with her lab, Finn with his sword, Jake with his impossible stretchy cosmic golden dog geometry, Prismo floating at the center of time with his wish remote and his pickle jar. Instead of separate characters, let them melt into one warm impression. Just the people who lived in that universe. Not heroes, not villains. Just existence, moving through time. We're going to turn Ooo into background noise. Imagine its entire history as a distant radio station somewhere across the desert of your thoughts. It's still broadcasting. The Mushroom War still blooms and fades. The Candy Kingdom still rises. Farm World still branches off like a weird side playlist in the multiverse. But the volume is sliding down. Lower, lower, until you can't really hear the words. Only the tone, a soft, friendly hum of reality doing its thing, very far away from where you are now. Bring your attention back from the center of time to the center of your body. Your breathing, moving in and out with boring, beautiful regularity. Your heartbeat, steady and small compared to any cosmic wish, but absolute royalty inside your own chest. The feeling of the bed holding you up, the gravity of your own timeline pressing you gently into the mattress. Let Ooo walk itself now. You don't have to follow. Here is the quiet truth. The timeline has already done its job. You don't need to remember where Evergreen fits, or which future Finn ends up in, or how many rules Prismo has to obey. The comfort is not in memorizing the plot. The comfort is in knowing there was a story at all, that someone somewhere cared enough to imagine this universe and fill it with desire, consequence, afternoons and endings, pattern interrupt. There is no twist coming, no secret wish, no last-minute reveal from behind a cosmic door. Instead, imagine Prismo watching you on one of his infinite screens, shrugging, reaching for the remote, and doing the kindest, strangest thing he can do with all that power. He turns the volume all the way down, not erasing you, not erasing Ooo, just silence as his final wish for you tonight. You can follow it if you want. Post-credits whisper for the ones who always stay to the end. So, if you're still here, in the quiet after the quiet, here is the thing. You are one of the few, the ones who ride the whole timeline out to the end credits, and then just keep floating. You're doing what Prismo does in the time room when the episode of a universe is technically over, but he lets it run anyway, just to see if there's one more weird little moment hiding in the static. Let's start with that. You, half awake, half dissolving, listening past the point where most people have already drifted off. Somewhere in the multiverse, on one of those infinite screens at the center of time, there's a version of you that made it to this exact second, and Prismo is probably pointing at the screen with a fry and going, respect. Think about that for a second. Out of all the timelines, you landed in the one where you stayed, and you don't have to hold on to it tightly. This whole tour of Oo's existence can just be a place you visit when your brain refuses to power down. You can drop back in on the Mushroom War nights, when we're going to drift through ruined cities and quiet fallout and the first strange flickers of magic. Or you can return to the ancient elementals, to Evergreen and the Ice Crown, and the way one wish echoes through reality for millennia. Or maybe it's a Finn and Jake era kind of night, where the biggest problem in the universe is where the two brothers can stay brave and silly in a world that won't stop changing. In this video, we only walked one path through that cosmic mess, one timeline stitched into a bedtime story. But there are whole deep dives waiting in the wings, whole episodes that never aired in your personal universe yet. Princess Bubblegum building a kingdom out of her own citizens. Simon and Marcy surviving the end of the world with a cursed crown and a broken song. Shermie and Beth swinging a sword through the far future, while Ooo quietly refuses to stop existing. If you want more of that to fall asleep to, more timelines, more cosmic bureaucrats, more broken but healing universes, you can let the channel know when you're awake again. A comment, a like, a tiny digital wish tossed into the algorithmic time room. For now, this is just a late-night hangout in that imaginary time room between wishes. No line, no paperwork, just you on a cosmic beanbag, us rambling about reality and desire, and Prismo half listening while he flips through universes like channels. Somewhere, the old man is still sleeping. Somewhere, Prismo is still dreaming him into a soft orange glow against the dark. Somewhere, Ooo is still poised between destruction and delight, every timeline balanced on the edge of another absurd miracle. And you are here, on this breath, and then the next, and then the next, until, without needing to wish for it, you finally slip out of this universe and into sleep.